The movie and show footage used in the video is owned entirely by the copyright holder. Repod Reptiles in a Lone Colony makes no claim of ownership and uses the footage for the purposes of education, commentary, and criticism under fair use. Please support the official releases of Jurassic Park, The Lost World Jurassic Park, Jurassic Park 3, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, and Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous. Hello everybody, welcome back to part 2 of the Jurassic Park timeline. In the previous video we covered everything from the prologue with the beginnings of Rexy and how her DNA ended up in the mosquito to begin with, to the rise and fall of Jurassic Park and Jurassic World itself. Which, now saying it is kind of awkward because that's exactly where we left off. was hoping we had a little more content in here. Shit. Which brings us to now. Last time we left off at Camp Cretaceous Season 1, and now we're continuing with Camp Cretaceous Season 2. But before we begin, I do want to make a note. I said that I wanted to make a definitive version of this timeline, because the original idea was to have everything together, everything that predates Jurassic World Dominion, and release it all in a single video. However, due to scheduling and releases and how big this video ended up being, which I'm actually kind of happy about, I was only able to get half of it done for Dominion, but now we are doing the second half for Camp Cretaceous, which is a good coincidence because part 2 is the part that has the majority of Camp Cretaceous in it. But yeah, I mainly want to talk about this definitive version. I said I wanted it to come out in 2023, in time for the anniversary of Jurassic Park. That was before I made part 1 and 2, which is a hassle. So, just to make a long story short, my laptop, as much as I like it, isn't powerful enough to render out a full 7-hour video without me doing some, elaborate scheme to ensure that it can pull the entire thing off. I won't go into detail how I got part 1 out. I'm recording this as I'm finishing part 2, and I'm secretly freaking out about going through that process again. Hopefully nothing goes wrong. The laptop possibly blowing up. If I am going to make a definitive version, which I do want to do, I'll probably wait until I have a better PC at hand. So, definitive version / part 3, not coming in 2023. But it will happen, just not immediately. But yeah, with that out of the way, let's continue the timeline. Since Larry shut down most of the park's systems, including the security systems, the remaining contained dinosaurs start breaking out of their enclosures and soon retake the island. Sadly to the campers, this puts them in a dangerous spot, as the Tyrannosaurus begins to retake the island for herself. Who looks to have made a very speedy recovery from the events that took place the night prior. The campers evade the Rex as it takes down one of the paras. Tired and exhausted, the campers need to find refuge. Luckily for them, the recent Rex chase has brought them to Main Street. However, it looks a little different from the last time they saw it. The campers figure out a fight happened between the Tyrannosaurus and the Indominus, and figure out the fight ended when the I-Rex got eaten by the Mosasaur. They soon scavenge the shops for food, supplies, and information that might help them off the island. Sammy manages to find a guy that informs the kids that there's a distress beacon they can activate. They just need to find it first. After some goofing around and a frozen pizza mishap, the campers soon hunker down and call it a day. But what about Ben? Oh wait. Surprisingly enough, Ben had survived the fall and is awoken by Bumpy. However, he soon realizes that it's just him and the young ankylosaur. Before Ben and Bumpy can get a move on, they are soon surrounded by a pack of compies, but young Bumpy manages to scare them off. Ben surmises everyone else is probably waiting for him at the dock, but before he starts moving, he passes out due to a leech on his leg. Back with the main group of campers, Darius awakens from a nightmare thanks to Yasmina, a nightmare about Ben. Yasmina and Darius talk about what to do about the beacon, mainly how to find it, before Yasmina recommends Darius to take a break and do something to loosen up. So they go read some dino facts on the Jurassic World Discovery Walk, where Darius has an idea as to where the beacon might be. The next day, the campers look at the fake natural decorations to see if the beacon is in the fake rocks or trees. And luckily for everyone, they manage to find the beacon. The problem is, there's a 2-ton predator between them and the distress beacon. The group soon devise a plan to get at it while the Rex is off finding more material, with Sammy as lookout tracking the Rex and her movements, while Brooklyn and Yasmina act as spotters when the Rex is visible or for any other potential dangers, while Darius and Kenji try to activate the beacon. With a little trouble, the boys manage to get the beacon and activated it, but the Rex returns, blocking their exit. Luckily for them, Brooklyn devises a plan of her own. Using her cardboard cutout and some audio footage from her camera, it manages to distract the T-Rex long enough for all the campers to escape Main Street. And soon, after the beacon's been activated, it's shown that the signal has been received. Meanwhile on the mainland, the news of Jurassic World soon becomes international headlines. And right after the incident, Richard Weisner, the COO of Maserati Global, sends out an urgent memo to the company's investors. The memo reads, "Dear investor, due to the unforeseen circumstance at Jurassic World resulting in the worst financial crisis the company has ever seen, the Maserati Global Corporation will be holding an emergency board meeting to discuss the future of the company and its various subsidiaries. Our head office phone lines have been extremely busy. We encourage our investors not to panic, but to have trust in the thousands of Maserati employees all over the world who will continue doing the excellent work they have always done to deliver high-quality results to this corporation. Yours sincerely, Richard Weisner." Back on Nublar, we are joined by Ben. He wakes up the next day, probably thinking everyone left, and he's assuming everyone thinks he's dead, which is a fair assumption. But that doesn't keep Ben down, because he knows about the emergency beacon and where to find it. Only problem is, he doesn't know where he is. So he and Bumpy explore the island a bit before finally finding a road. All roads on the island lead back to the main park. But before he can take the route, Ben and Bumpy are ambushed by Toro, who's looking mighty crispy. They manage to evade the Carno, and now they're back to square one. Ben then sets up a very crude camp, only for Bumpy to take his bed. And for the next few days, Ben and Bumpy go on routine, finding food, drinking water, then going to bed. But soon, emotions get the best of Ben and he scares Bumpy off. He soon realizes his mistake, but it's already too late. Later that night, Ben soon encounters the pack of compies yet again. But then Ben breaks again and scares the compies away, completing his character arc and cementing himself to be the best character in the series. Do not at me. Back with the main group, the campers try to find a place where they can set up camp until help arrives. At this point, it's been, and I quote, days since the campers activated the emergency beacon. They just need to hold up until rescue arrives. Darius then makes a bold suggestion that the campers head back to Camp Cretaceous, and his logic is pretty solid.
Just hear me out. There's a stream for fresh water, we've got trees and mountains to protect us from the worst of weather and dinosaur attacks. Okay, not all dinosaur attacks, but if you were coming to rescue a bunch of campers, wouldn't camp be the first place you looked?
Yasmina takes the lead, but her leg's still being messed up. Actually, why haven't they done anything about that leg at this point? Tries to help clear the debris, but proves she's not in top shape to help. After quickly checking the map, Darius finds a location that might have medical supplies. So him, Brooklyn, and Sammy head there, while Kenji and Yasmina stay back at camp. Darius appointing Kenji being in charge for clearing the debris. The group go their separate ways to complete their respective tasks. While Darius and Sammy talk about potential dinosaur behaviors, Brooklyn is stopped by a sudden humming sound of a machine. Before the others can hear it, however, the sound stops. Back at camp, Kenji continues to loiter around, not really doing what he's supposed to do. Because of this lack of action, Yasmina tries to sort through the rubble, but her leg makes the task a little harder. The two try to rest, but Yasmina ends up hobbling off. forcing Kenji to go after her with a butter knife as defense. Back with Brooklyn, Darius, and Sammy, they make it to the location only to see it's not a first aid station but a satellite veterinary camp with both sick and treated dinosaurs still in cages. After they get the supplies they need to aid Yasmina's leg, the group decides to release all the dinosaurs, but with the exception of one, a green baryonyx, which will start a debate between Darius and Sammy. Back with Kenji and his intimidating butter knife, he manages to find Yasmina taking down some vines. Kenji begs Yasmina to come back to camp to rest, but Yasmina is determined to complete the task. Back with Brooklyn, Darius, and Sammy, the argument of whether to release the berry or not gets heated while Brooklyn hears the noise again. Darius stating it's best to leave the animal in the cage rather than letting it go, potentially being a problem in the future. Which, spoiler alert, ends up being a problem in the future. But Sammy argues since they found the animals and let the herbivores go, it's only fair they did the same with the carnivores. Her arguments is based less on survival and more of an ethical standpoint. But before they can finish their debate, smash cut to Kenji giving Yasmina a piggyback ride. But soon the two break into another argument, ending with Yasmina attempting to hop her way back but doesn't make it too far. Kenji consoles her on relying on others, since up to this point, Yasmina has always relied on herself. But the two finally come to an agreement. Kenji carries Yas to the camp and begins salvaging supplies, while Yas rests by a tree. Back at the veterinary camp, two more baryonyxes enter the area, causing quite the kerfuffle, but one of them tries to free the trapped berry, while the other one continues to hassle the campers. As the baryonyx snaps at Brooklyn, Darius and Sammy release the last of the herbivores, which stand their ground against the pair of baryonyxes. However, Darius makes the last-minute decision and frees the trapped baryonyx, which now all three have names, Chaos, Limbo, and Grim. Now with the three of them together, the herbivores start to stampede and make their way through the camp. Soon the campers would regroup with supplies in hand, and a new idea on how to renovate the destroyed camp, with the campers trying to make it a livable space for themselves. Brooklyn goes off trying to find more supplies, but stops herself when she hears the same mechanical motor noise. The sound leads her to a small clearing with a bunch of flowers, with the flowers in the middle of the bundle being frozen solid. And this is going to be an intermission because we got some stuff to cover that doesn't involve the campers. After Brooklyn's discovery, some time would pass, and major events would take place back home. On March of 2016, inquiry started against Dr. Wu and the possible violations of the Gene Guard Act. Both InGen and Masrani Global are thrown into trial as for allowing the creation of the Indominus Rex. And this is on top of the $800 million of damages to settle class action lawsuits brought on by survivors of the 2015 incident. Several employees for both InGen and Masrani Global come out with some incriminating evidence against the companies and Dr. Wu. But not too long after this, Dr. Wu will be employed under Eli Mills, but we'll get to that later on. 3 months after the events of Jurassic World, Kate and her research team, minus Oscar, are now situated in New York trying to get in contact with Claire Deering. But the Masrani Corporation, continuing on damage control, denies Kate of any information onto where to find Claire. Kate was hoping Claire might have seen Jeannie before leaving the island, considering Claire and her group were the last people to evacuate. Seemingly hitting a dead end, the Dino Decoder starts transmitting information to the scientists. They now have confirmation that Jeannie is still alive, however not in the best of conditions, because the Dino Decoder reveals Jeannie is under immense stress and fear. Using the device, the team managed to locate Jeannie, however she's not on Nublar. Instead, she's in the Acatama Desert in Chile. Knowing Jeannie is alive, Kate begins preparations to find her Troodon, and her research team follow her lead and fly their way to Jeannie's location. There, they discover a secret InGen research base where we meet Kurt Reed and Dr. Okay, so all the footage I found of the show, I still can't pinpoint or make out this guy's name due to the audio quality, so this gent is either Bornoff or Vorkov. Feel free to confirm in the comments. Anyways, the two villains kidnapped Jeannie and stole some of Kate's notes on the Dino Decoder in hopes to use the data from her findings and incorporate it into their weaponized Raptor project. The team on site tried to conduct a test with Jeannie, with the doctor misreading her mood and the Raptor providing more trouble than they hoped. Because of this, they cut the test short and forced Jeannie back into her enclosure. Well, I say enclosure, it looks more like a crate. With the lackluster results, Kurt Reed then begins planning on kidnapping Kate and her team to aid in the project. And speak of the devil, they're just outside. As the group sneak into the compound, Kate surprises a guard with a roundhouse kick. But then the guard reveals himself to be Oscar. He explains that after the events of Jurassic World, he was transferred to the Engine Security Division and aided in both capturing and transporting some of the dinosaurs off of Nublar to this research facility. Oscar also reveals that Jeannie laid a pair of eggs, but the Engine Security team left them on the island. With this new piece of information, Kate wants to break Jeannie out and get back to the island. But before Kate's research team can do anything, Kurt finds them and orders Oscar to capture Kate, but Oscar defects. Soon a fight ensues. Oscar lets Jeannie out, but soon the engine staff let out their own raptors. Once the dust settles, Kate's team bugs out of there with Jeannie and the Dino Decoder, now making their way to Isla Nublar. By the way, if you guys are there and you see a couple of campers, maybe, I don't know, bring them back home? On the island, Kate's team presses forward with Jeannie taking the lead. Soon, Allison finds a nest of eggs, assuming them to be Jeannie's, but it's soon revealed the nest actually belongs to a Triceratops. Soon the Ceratopsian attacks the group, trying to defend her unhatched eggs, and in the chaos, Jeannie starts protecting Kate's team against the Ceratopsian. Chad tries to do the whole Owen Alpha stance, with the hand, but it proves ineffective. Or maybe it is. Or maybe it isn't. Blue steps into the fray and Chad retreats. Thus chaos ensues once again before Blue and Jeannie square off with each other. As the Triceratops retreats, the two raptors continue their stare down. However, they start doing something a little peculiar. They begin communicating with each other. Soon Jeannie manages to ward off Blue and continue her trek to find her eggs. But not too far behind, the Engine Security team also touch down on Nublar and follow Kate's team. They're hoping to capture Dr. Kate, Dr. Riley, and get their hands on the Dino Decoder. As day turns into night, Kate's team continue, before running into another bioluminescent dinosaur. Not a Parasaurolophus, but actually a Stegosaurus and its young, preferably known as Stegosaur Lux. By the way, it's not only Parasaurs and Stegosaurs that can glow in the dark, there's one more. As the group wait around, viewing the glowing Stegosaurus, there's a bit of romance plot between Riley and Kate. Oh, but that's gonna have to take a back seat, cause Jeannie's sad. So the team presses on forward, still trying to find her eggs, and following closely behind is Blue. Soon the trekking in the jungle pays off, as Jeannie has found her eggs, and so does the Engine Security team. But everyone soon gets interrupted by a flock of pteranodons. With everything that's going on, Jeannie then lashes out at Dr. Vorkov. What is your name? Jeannie attacks him. Soon another fight ensues. It's soon broken up once Kurt shocks Jeannie off of Vorkov, still don't know. Soon Kate's team is captured by the Engine Security team, but Kate, who runs off with Jeannie and her eggs, then retreats into the jungle, with Kurt following suit. With Bordov interrogating Riley about the Dino Decoder, but ends up getting carried off by a Pteranodon. Man, for its size, that thing is strong. Meanwhile, Kate gets cornered by Kurt, and the two duke it out. Soon Kurt gains the upper hand, leaving Kate hanging off a cliff. But then Riley shows up and shocks Kurt with a stun stick. But before Riley can save Kate, Kurt gets back up and charges Riley, but Riley unknowingly dodges Kurt, which sends him off the cliff. Once Riley saves Kate, they kiss and make their way to the docks. Kate and Riley sneak in to save their friends, but soon something makes its presence known. As the Engine Security team set up a perimeter, the area is soon secured, or at least they think it is. Kate and Riley manage to save their team after sneaking in. They try to escape via jeep, but doesn't go well. The group ends up fighting the Engine Security team before their fight lures in the island's Tyrannosaur. Staying completely still, the T-Rex circles the group, unable to see them, but Chad messes up with a picture, and the Rex is on them. The T-Rex attacks before Oscar lures her away with a flare. The engine security team soon rejoin the fight and keep the T-Rex at bay with flamethrowers along with Kurt, who has survived his fall from earlier. But soon the group is saved by Genie and Blue. The two predators corner Kurt before the T-Rex chases him down and pretty much eats him. The engine team then retreats off the island. Now, the original plan was to take Genie and her eggs back to the mainland. However, Kate soon realizes that Nublar is their home, not some lab elsewhere. So Kate asks her team to return the eggs, which actually end up hatching. With that, Kate takes off the Dino Decoder, the humans get on the Jeep, and Genie with her young retreat back into the forest. And that's the Jurassic World live tour. Man, hope nothing bad happens to them. Anyways, back to those campers. A month or so would pass after the main events of Jurassic World the live show. For the remaining survivors on the island, around this time Ben prepares to take on Toro solo, crafting a spear and perfecting his aim. He then ventures to the Carno's territory and does battle. He manages to hold well on his own, but the Carno soon gets the upper hand. But Ben gets a major assist by a near fully grown Bumpy. The two reunited defeat Toro, driving him away from his territory. By this time, the campers managed to construct a shelter for the 5 of them. However, on this day, the stream they relied on for water has dried up. As Brooklyn investigates, the same mechanical whirring sound is heard yet again. She probably didn't hear it earlier because the stream was probably blocking the noise. And by this point, the campers kinda got used to each other's quips, to the point where they finished each other's sentences near perfectly every time. Because Brooklyn is determined to find the source of the sound, she's joined by Yasmina and Sammy, while Kenji and Darius try to find out why the stream has stopped flowing. While on their trek, Darius tries to wow Kenji with dino facts, which... don't do that, please. But it doesn't really get to him. Soon the duo come across a waterfall and scale it. Meanwhile, with Brooklyn, Sammy, and Yasmina, they continue on their trek through the jungle, talking about school and other things they may have in common. Things that Brooklyn finds really hard to relate. But soon, the trio find a patch of flowers, frozen solid. The reason for the humming and frozen flowers is because of a vent. Back with Darius and Kenji, they find the source of the dried river, a crudely made dam out of debris blocking the stream. Thanks to a pair of territorial stegosaurs, they manage to unblock the stream. But now they have an angry stegosaur that leads them straight into a ceratosaurus. Back with the girls, they investigate the vent, and they find common ground with a show they all watch called Esther Stone High School P.I. The hell is an Esther Stone? The trio then follow the hum of the machine, trying to find out where the vent leads, using nothing but the sound and the slight vibrations they could feel in the ground. Luckily, it pays off because it leads them back to a genetics lab. Back with the boys, they manage to avoid fighting the Ceratosaurus, because the Cerato doesn't want to eat. Wow, a carnivore that doesn't want to constantly kill. Who knew? The duo followed the Ceratosaurus to a watering hole, where a plethora of dinosaurs, both herbivores and carnivores, coexist side by side. By this time, Kenji finally gets the beauty of Jurassic World. And then the two gents just hang around, watching the dinosaurs go about their activities. Back with the trio, they scrummage around the lab and find no information to help them figure out what Manticore might be doing here. Because spy, espionage, and shenanigans. But before they can continue through the lab, the trio of baryonyxes return. Told you they'd be a problem later. As the girls tried to sneak away, Brooklyn would find an envelope with the title E750, while trying to sneak past the berries, and like that, Brooklyn would alert the baryonyxes to the trio's location. They managed to escape, but Brooklyn would drop the E750 envelope. Good thing Sammy was there. They open it and find a series of letters that to them mean nothing. But GTCA are the 4 nuclei type bases of a DNA strand, standing for guanine, thymine, cytosine, and adenine. Pretty sure I pronounced those incorrectly. Now with that quick science lesson out of the way, the 5 campers, having completed their respective adventures for today, regroup at the shelter to celebrate their success. They stage a party, but as they look out to the forest of Nublar, they soon notice something. A fire. And no, not a forest fire that might have started from a lightning strike or certain geological phenomena. It was actually a campfire, as if a person has set up camp somewhere. The campers then run to the fire, periodically checking up on the treetops to see if they're heading in the right path. But soon the fire is put out, and the group is cornered by another Ceratosaurus. They try to fend it off before a flare is fired, and 3 people show up, successfully scaring the carnivore off. Enter Mitch, Tiff, and their bodyguard, Hap, who revealed themselves to be eco-tourists. Almost said terrorists, still have King of the Monsters on the mind. The 3 adults lead the campers to their luxury campsite, full of king beds, warm food, and functional bathroom yurts. While having breakfast, the campers catch their new guests up on what happened to them, while their new visitors assure the campers will get out once their boat returns in 2 days. But at the table, Brooklyn becomes suspicious of Hap, especially with the way he was holding the key card. Tiff and Mitch then step aside to discuss something. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Ben and Bumpy continue on the road before finding Kenji's butter knife, and soon overhear Tiff and Mitch. Suspicious, he begins to follow them unnoticed. Meanwhile, the campers huddle in a bathroom yurt. Brooklyn reveals her suspicions of the newcomers, but everyone else denounces her mainly because they see this as their way home. But they do state they'll stay cautious. I said state, doesn't mean they're going to do. As the campers lounge around, Brooklyn, still very suspicious of the trio, sneaks around following Hap to his personal yurt. Soon, she is joined by Kenji. While that's happening, Darius offers to show Tiff and Mitch around the island, showing them his field notes on the dinosaurs, but the guide comes to an abrupt halt when an alarm is heard. They rush back to camp only to find Hap confronting Brooklyn and Kenji, who tried to sneak into the yurt. After some cryptic talking that has the subtlety of a sledgehammer, the campers reconvene in the bathroom yurt, but this time everyone's not happy with Brooklyn. Eventually the campers break, Darius insisting to take Mitch and Tiff to see more dinosaurs. While they're gone, Brooklyn and Kenji try to break into the yurt once again, but get caught by Hap. Again. After spotting a group of brachiosaurs, Darius suggests they check out the watering hole. Meanwhile, Hap keeps an eye on Brooklyn and Kenji. Brooklyn fake sleeps and sneaks herself and Kenji away. They find Hap and overhear him on the radio talking with someone very ominously, stating he'd take care of the kids. After hearing that, Brooklyn and Kenji make a break for it, with Hap following suit. Back with the guide group, Tiff urges everyone that they should head back to camp, thinking something may have happened. In the jungle, Hap continues to pursue the pair. As he gets them cornered to a rock, he's knocked out cold by none other than Ben motherfucking Pincus and Bumpy. Ben secures Hap and catches the camper pair up on his adventures on the island. After providing some interesting suggestions to say the least, Hap wakes up and challenges Ben, but Brooklyn breaks them up. Back in camp, Mitch and Tiff prepare to go after Hap. It isn't until one of them says the boat that was originally supposed to meet them in 2 days is now coming in 3. As the kids push them a little more, the remaining campers become suspicious. So Sammy and Yasmina distract Mitch and Tiff while Darius snoops around the secured yurt. He finds peculiar tools and a decapitated Sinoceratops head. Mitch finds Darius out and admits that him and his wife aren't eco-tourists, but rather big game hunters, who have come to Isla Nublar to claim some prizes. And using his friends as leverage, Mitch demands Darius to show him the way to the watering hole. Back with Hap and the other half of the campers, they begin to interrogate him, but there's no need, as Hap reveals that Mitch and Tiff are the ones who want to leave the campers for dead, while he wants to try and save them. The campers, rightfully so, take this information with a pinch of salt. So to prove his honesty, he asks the kids to make their way to the northwest side of the island, where a boat will be waiting for them. Still suspicious, the campers decide to head there by visiting a garage to get a vehicle first. But as they're about to enter, the group is ambushed by the Baryonyx trio yet again. Meanwhile, with Group A, Darius leads the pair to the watering hole. The trio of campers try to devise a plan before being cut off by some bushes rustling. Back at Group B, they manage to get into the garage thanks to the keycard Brooklyn found earlier. They hide inside away from the berries before accidentally opening the main garage doors. Shit. But the group get a motorcycle working and set off an explosion which blasts the baryonyxes back. But this would be a temporary solution as the three baryonyxes resume the chase. The trio on the bike having major problems trying to evade the more than agile baryonyxes.
They can't do that.
Yes, Kenji, I agree. Hap asks the campers to untie him so that he can help. They untie him and he manages to fend them off, but the berries are persistent. With no way of escape, Hap disconnects his car and takes on the baryonyxes solo, sacrificing himself so the kids can escape. Back with Group A, the owner of the rustling bush reveals themselves to be a stegosaurus. As Mitch and Tiff prepare to put the animal down, Darius spooks it with a whistle. The stegosaurus then charges the group, separating Tiff and Mitch from the campers. The kids make a run for it, but don't get far. Darius and Sammy then distract the couple long enough for Darius to give Yasmina a page from his field notes and asks her to run. And luckily for her, she manages to find Brooklyn and Kenji. She warns them about Mitch and Tiff, telling the pair that Darius is taking them to the watering hole. But after thinking about it and checking the page that Darius gave Yasmina, the trio soon find out Darius is actually taking the pair to Main Street in hopes the unknown terrain to their enemy will aid the kids, but also that a certain dinosaur might aid in the situation. But before they can move, Bumpy makes an entrance, revealing to Yasmina that Ben is alive. The group decide to head to Main Street, and they end up taking the tunnels to make it on time, but soon come across yet another dead end. Back with Group A, Darius manages to lead the couple to Main Street, but catching on quick, the couple turn on the two campers. After a quick distraction, Sammy grabs the rifle, and the two campers book it to Main Street, using the environment to their advantage. The two of them try to hide amongst the crates. Wait a minute, those weren't there before. Meanwhile with Group B, they soon hear that same blasted whimpering noise, and follow it to a door, which leads them through a hallway that's apparently really cold. Going further in, the campers soon find a control room. Back with Darius and Sammy, they continue to avoid the two game hunters, having their cover almost blown by a compy, and using the uncanny Brooklyn cutout to their advantage. Back with Group B, they manage to get a generator running again, giving them access to cameras, microphones, and other park systems. After Kenji restores power, one of the buttons blinks. He rapidly presses it, which short-circuits the wire, something that will have dire consequences later on. But at least the blinking stopped. Using the security cameras, the group managed to find Darius and Sammy, but also spot Mitch and Tiff closing in on them. Group B tries to warn them, but they don't have the comms working yet. Soon, cornered by the hunters, and with the power restored, means that the trackers in all the dinosaurs start working as well. Yeah, I kind of forgot to mention they got that tablet. How did they get it, you may ask? eBay. But then both parties soon lured the attention of the resident Tyrannosaur. After a brief tussle, Tiff and Mitch managed to escape, leaving the T-Rex to be Darius and Sammy's problem. But thanks to the campers in the control room, they managed to distract the Rex with lights and a hologram, allowing Sammy and Darius to escape. At this point, the campers in the control room manage to get the comms working, but can't hear what Darius and Sammy are saying. But that problem gets resolved soon, and soon the pair learn of Ben being alive. Despite Darius' protest of everyone should get to the boat and leave him to deal with the game hunters, the group soon set up a plan to intervene Mitch and Tiff at the watering hole. So everyone gets to their respective stations and roles to try and stop Tiff and Mitch from killing any more dinosaurs. Kenji taking the motorbike to pick up Darius and Sammy, Ben, Bumpy, and Yasmina prep a way to scare the dinosaurs from the watering hole, while Brooklyn plays Big Brother in the control room. From there, she makes Tiff's and Mitch's walk through the jungle a little more shocking. However, the campers fall short on their objective, as Tiff ends up killing one of the baryonyxes. It's Grim. Man, Grim was done so dirty. First, he gets sick, and then gets sent to the sick ward, only for it to be abandoned and left for dead by the park staff, cause evacuation, only to spend a couple of weeks with the homies, only to get shot. Justice for Grim. As Tiff and Mitch move on, the now pair of baryonyxes finds Grim's body and pick up the scent of the hunters. They soon follow suit. Eventually, Darius breaks off with Kenji and Sammy, making his way to the watering hole alone. Brooklyn, protesting against this decision, scrambles at the control panel, trying to see if there's a way to help, but not before catching a glimpse of a door with the code E750 on it. But we'll get to that later. Anyways, luckily for Brooklyn, she ends up finding a gyrosphere that will help her beat the time needed to get to Darius. Meanwhile, at the watering hole, Mitch and Tiff make it, seeing a plethora of species there, but they set their sights on a peculiar animal out of the bunch, Blue. But Darius ruins the potential shot, making it in time before they can pull the trigger. And soon, the campers descend on the watering hole. Brooklyn knocks over Tiff and Mitch with the gyrosphere, while Ben, Bumpy, and Yasmina in a Jurassic World service vehicle, along with Kenji and Sammy also joining the chaos on their motorbike, manage to scare away the dinosaurs from the area. And while that happens, Brooklyn and Darius make their escape, and everything seems to have worked out. Until the dinosaurs that stampeded away, for some reason, are now stampeding back. And why are they stampeding back? Because they're being chased by the Tyrannosaurus. Soon everyone piles onto Bumpy, trying to escape the panicking herd and the hunting Rex. They manage to, despite a couple of close calls. Back with Brooklyn and Darius, they soon lose control of the gyrosphere and get caught by Tiff and Mitch, but ultimately escape the hunters. Tiff and Mitch hide in a tree, while their rifle is being damaged by the stampede. However, Mitch gets caught in one of their snare traps before the T-Rex shows up. Tiff abandons Mitch with their broken gun, and Mitch soon meets his end at the jaws of the T-Rex. One down, one to go, said the baryonyx. Meanwhile, Brooklyn and Darius try to beat Tiff at the dock. However, they aren't fast enough, as Tiff manages to cast off. But maybe it was better the kids didn't go, because Tiff ends up getting killed by the remaining two baryonyxes. All the campers regroup at the dock with a new drive to get off the island. This time, they're not going to wait for help, they're going to get off themselves. And as they work on ways to escape the island, which, given the amount of attempts we're going to see soon, might take them like a couple of weeks to a month, but yeah, we'll see. And in that time, the island's dinosaurs soon take occupancy of the man-made structures, cutting power by eating wires and power lines, making nests in rides, and having the E750 door tear down. But enough of that. Let's talk about the campers. The campers would have spent a couple of weeks to possibly, at most, 5 to 6 months on the island. And through that time, had a few attempts at escaping the island. First, the campers attempted to escape with the kayaks, but I assume either A, couldn't retrieve them because of the Mosasaurus, or B, the surf surrounding the island proved too much for the small kayaks. Apparently they also experimented with gyrospheres in the water. If I had to guess, probably seeing if they float or ride them through the ocean floor. There was another plan to possibly find and pilot a helicopter, which kind of hard. They also tried checking the surface tunnels to see if there was any phones or communication devices that they could use to contact the outside world, but that doesn't yield anything either. Which brings us to now, where the campers have constructed a raft using various materials, and it seems to be managing well. However, as they leave, they had to leave Bumpy behind. But don't worry, because this tidal wave would destroy their raft and send them back to the island. Once back, they are rejoined by Bumpy. The campers regroup and reconsider their options. They agree that Darius' raft plan is the best one they got. I mean, you did see me mention their other attempts, right? The first official order of business for their Raft 2 Electric Boogaloo is to find a new sail. Kenji then mentions the hand gliders that are on the island. So the campers make their way to Lookout Point to salvage one of the hand gliders and make a sail. Brooklyn, Kenji, Sammy, and Yasmina will go up the sky gondolas, while Ben and Darius stay on the ground constructing a sled for the materials. But Darius also wants to prod at Ben because he suspects that something is wrong. Spoiler alert, there is something wrong. Darius helps Ben out, but before he can question his friend on what's up, a rustling in the bush forces them to move on. And good thing too, they narrowly avoided that Cerato.
Holy crap, did you, what the fuck?
Back with the 4 campers on Lookout Point, Kenji and Sammy do some sightseeing, while Brooklyn and Yasmina try to prep a parasail. Yeah. Yasmina looks around for a rock to break the lock with. however, ends up finding a nest of Dimorphodon eggs. But not before Sammy spots something else through the periscope. Back on the ground, Ben and Darius manage to make a sled, and Ben admits to Darius he doesn't want to abandon Bumpy again. Darius, being the optimist, believes there's a solution in a larger raft, but Ben, being a realist, shoots the idea down. Back on Lookout Point, the 4 campers are then attacked by the nesting Dimorphodons. Kenji and Sammy make it to the gondolas, while Brooklyn and Yasmina take a glider down. Ben, Bumpy, and Darius see the events unfold where they're standing, and fend off a few Dimorphodons. Brooklyn and Yasmina manage to avoid a few before one of them damages the glider itself, causing the duo to crash. But everyone seems alright. Once they regroup, Sammy and Kenji reveals what they saw through the periscope. They lead the campers to the coast, where they are greeted by the hunter's boat, left adrift close to the shore. It seems like they'll manage to get out, but will they get out alive? Ooh! The campers get on the boat checking its status. It seems good with the exception of the bridge, or the control room. It's heavily damaged, and the boat is almost out of fuel. But luckily there are no dinosaurs on board, considering. Kenji then pilots the boat because apparently he's part of a yacht club. Anyways, he pilots the boat to a nearby port where Bumpy and Ben meets the other campers. Once in port, the campers enjoy themselves, and I gotta say it, beach episode? So the campers are having a grand old time, taking a swim near the docks, Kenji pranking people, but then the celebration is cut short, as it's soon discovered that there's a gaping hole in the hull. With night quickly descending, the campers decide to check the docks for any fuel and tools that might patch the hole. But soon it's discovered their dock may not be as secured as they'd hope. A few of the campers manage to find supplies that might help with the hole, but Darius comes across a patch of fence that's been completely destroyed. And soon the other campers suspect something is in here with them. But it's alright, it's just a group of Tyrannosaurs who end up being not so friendly. The campers spend their time trying to evade the angry herbivores while getting to the boat, with Brooklyn making a quick patch to the hole that won't last long. Thankfully for the campers, they have a Bumpy. They all manage to get the boat patched and launch, but the Tyrannosaurs are relentless, following the boat into the water, still trying to get at the kids. Eventually the campers manage to drive them away with some firecrackers. The next day, the campers, now adrift to save whatever fuel they have left, relax a bit, but Darius believes something is up, stating recently the dinosaurs are acting particularly strange. Using the duct tape, Darius adds a few more strips to the patch so it may last a little longer. With the limited amount of fuel, Brooklyn then surmises they won't be able to make it to another dock, which is located on the other side of the island. But then Kenji soon remembers about his father's private dock. The campers then make their way there using the last of the boat's fuel. It's due or remains stranded at this point. As they make their way to the P house, which I assume means PlayStation at this point, the campers then come across a lone Monolophosaurus before continuing. Using Brooklyn's keycard, the campers manage to get into the penthouse. However, since the power is out, they have to use the stairs. As the campers explore, little do they know they'll be hosting some unwanted guests. Ben makes a note of Bumpy acting agitated, either because
she only acts like that when she senses danger or when she's constipated.
Peak comedy. Ben, Sammy, and Yasmina make their way to the garage, hoping to find fuel and something to properly patch the boat with. But as they leave the room, the trio soon get cornered by a few Monolophosaurs. They escape through the vents, but it might not be the best place to hide. The remaining campers find what they need. Well, somewhat. A periscope and a compass. May not be a GPS, but it will have to suffice. However, the campers soon come face to face with another Monolophosaurus. Using the elevator shaft, the trio escape. Meanwhile, in the vents, the other half of the campers decide to continue down to the garage, but soon run across another Monolophosaurus. Told you. They manage to escape it and find their way to the garage, finding it filled with limos. The trio then begins to siphon gas from the vehicles and also find a potential fix for their whole problem: sealant. Back in the elevator shaft, the other trio of campers continue down before being ambushed by yet another Monolophosaurus. But Kenji manages to knock it the hell out with his father's sculpture. Sorry, I meant Gotti. The campers then escape the elevator shaft. Meanwhile, with the other group of campers, they manage to siphon most of the limos, but soon get encroached by yet another Monolophosaurus. The campers then sneak their way to the last limo, which still has gas. They book it out of there while picking up the rest of the campers and getting an assist by Bumpy. The campers then make it back to the boat, where Sammy goes more in detail about her worries, thinking that Manticore might have already destroyed her family's livelihood due to, well, recent events. But Yasmina consoles her, assuring everything is probably alright. Speaking of Manticore, I wonder what they're doing with that drone. I mean, obviously they know about Jurassic World going under. That story would have made international... The next day, the campers apply the sealant, but they have to wait a full 48 hours before it fully dries. While this is happening, the campers go about what they need to do before they leave. Brooklyn agrees to help Sammy with the mystery of Manticore, with a real possibility that the company may be connected to E750, and the pair would traverse the main facilities of the island to find clues, while Darius, Kenji, and Yasmina have to regain their compass after a compy steals it. Eventually, the trio would come across a haphazardly parked Jeep. This is probably the Jeep Claire and Owen used. The campers also find the original Jurassic Park Visitor Center, while Yasmina gives us a pretty cool Easter egg.
Legend has it that the original park owner broke his ankle here and then was eaten alive by compies.
That's not true.
Anyways, the campers enter the visitor center and manage to locate the compass. Only problem is, it's nowhere close to ground level. The campers manage to get on some scaffolding with Yasmina at almost arm's length to the compass, but everyone stops their advances because Blue has entered the building. Literally. Meanwhile, with Brooklyn and Sammy, they continue through the facilities and service tunnels of the island, but find nothing on Manticore or any information regarding E750. Eventually, a falling out occurs as Brooklyn doesn't exactly grasp the gravity of Sammy's situation. Eventually, the pair reconcile and make their way to a building that's been marked as under construction for 5 years. And while Brooklyn makes the argument that contractors usually extend or don't complete a project quickly, I'm making the argument of, is this not motherfucking Jurassic World? Have you seen the things they made? Like hell, it's not more than just a construction site. So the pair are off. Meanwhile, with the trio, they make themselves real slow to not startle Blue. Yasmina makes for the compass, but only to knock it out of the nest. Thankfully, Darius manages to save it. Blue then kills one of the compies and retreats further into the visitor center. With the threat seemingly gone, the trio make their way out, only to be surprised by Blue again. The trio then run outside and hide in the Jeep. Blue tries her best to break in before Yasmina releases the brakes. Anyway, the Jeep gets moving once again, with Blue giving chase. Eventually, everyone, including Blue, are met with a car crash. With the campers seemingly fine, but Blue trapped under the Jeep itself, with a pack of hungry compies ready to finish her off, soon Darius decides to try and save her. So Darius and Yasmina try to fight off the compies, while Kenji goes back to the visitor center and collect a bunch of quarters from the vending machine. Once he makes his way back, he distracts the compies by tossing the coins. Then the trio manage to get Blue out of the Jeep, before she reminds them that she's still an unpredictable animal, forcing the trio to run away. Meanwhile, with Brooklyn and Sammy, they make their way to the construction site and find the E750 room that Brooklyn saw earlier on the security camera. They enter the room to find the lab, but it's been trashed by something. Anyways, they look around before Brooklyn finds a laptop. While there's no internet access because of course the power's down, the laptop does contain video files. Log files really, from none other than Dr. Henry Wu himself talking about E750. Finally, I can drop that name because Wu reveals E750 is actually the very first hybrid dinosaur designed, and he dubbed it the Scorpius Rex. Through the file, Sammy and Brooklyn discovered that due to the way the animal was cloned, it became disfigured, both mentally and somewhat physically. So much so, Masrani stated it was too ugly to display, but he and the board saw its potential, so they left Wu to his work. However, the Scorpius would escape, injuring several people, including Wu, who needed to be given an antivenom, and this forced Masrani's hand and demanded the Scorpius to be destroyed. But as I stated before, Wu kept it on ice, very much literally, until now. Knowing how dangerous these hybrids can be, with the Indominus being a prime example, the duo tried to make it back to the gyrosphere to warn the others. But little did they know, a Scorpius was busy, causing a stampede of dinosaurs, and even, holy crap, it took out a Brachiosaurus! With the gyrosphere knocked away, the duo tried to make it back on foot, with the stampeding dinosaurs on their heels. Back at camp, Darius packs the essentials before the campers can depart. The plan was to wait for the sealant to dry and leave once it does tomorrow. However, Darius realizes he never managed to document a Gallimimus, so Kenji asks Darius to go out to find and document a Gallimimus, while Kenji stays back and packs. Darius then runs off while Kenji is left at camp with Ben to pack the essentials. Kenji then sends Ben to get some toilet paper. Given somewhat recent events, seems relatable. As Kenji continues to pack, Yasmina returns, but soon the two of them discover that something is off. Ben hasn't returned in over an hour. The two campers then drop everything and head off into the jungle to find Ben. Meanwhile with Darius, he manages to tame and pet a Gallimimus. However, the herd starts acting weird, showing signs of aggression towards something. As Darius investigates the hesitant animals, he's soon spooked by a dead Gallimimus falling from a tree, and noting the quills in the general vicinity. Back with Kenji and Yasmina, they manage to find Ben, feeding Bumpy near a herd of ankylosaurs. After some passive-aggressive comments, the trio then make it back to camp, with an appropriate 2020 load of TP. With yet another raging storm inching ever closer to the island, Darius heads back to camp, trying to figure out what killed the Gallimimus. He is soon surprised and joined by Brooklyn and Sammy, who fill him in on the Scorpius Rex, urging him that everyone needs to leave the island yesterday. And with that, the three campers head back to camp. Speaking of camp, by the way, Ben, Kenji, and Yasmina manage to make it back before anyone else. But before they can resume packing, Darius calls Kenji on the walkie-talkie, informing everyone of the Scorpius Rex. With the sudden news of this leaves the campers heavily unprepared to leave. So with that in mind, Kenji sends Yasmina to the boat to get it ready to depart, while Ben and Kenji stay behind to finish packing, while Brooklyn, Darius, and Sammy will swing by the camp to help carry the supplies. And like that, everyone scrambles to get where they need to be. But to Yasmina's dismay, the oncoming storm has made the sea way too turbulent to cast off. Yasmina then returns to camp, informing everyone about the turbulent waters. Leaving the actions and inactions to the past, the campers then begin to fortify the site, using wood planks and car parts to fortify the fences, arming themselves with more notable weapons, and using a car battery to electrify their perimeter fence. With the storm now on top of them, and the Scorpius closing in on their location, the campers huddle up and hunker down. The campers try to last the storm and the ever-persistent Scorpius Rex, as the deranged hybrid literally rips its way through more of the island's population of dinosaurs. It soon becomes attracted to the electrical current of the fence, luring it into the campsite. Once it spots the campers, the Scorpion then begins its attack. Not gonna lie, this is actually probably one of my favorite sequences, not only in the show, but probably one of my favorite sequences in the entire Jurassic franchise. Before it can finish off the remaining campers, a sudden lightning strike distracts it long enough before a distant dinosaur call sends it off. Someone theorized that the Scorpius might be suffering from a neurological problem similar to a bipolar disorder, hence why its behavior is so erratic for a dinosaur. The campers then regroup, assessing the damage, and not going to lie, it's pretty bad, as Sammy joins the campers, only to discover she's been impaled by some of the Scorpius's quills, and on cue, she collapses. And before you ask, yes, the Scorpius is venomous. Should be noted, it got its namesake because Dr. Wu infused its DNA with that of an actual scorpion fish, which, if you don't know, has venomous barbs. When Sammy comes to, the campers then rip the quills out before she loses consciousness again. But after everything the campers can do, Sammy's condition begins to worsen, and looking a little green. After Darius incorrectly labels the toxin as poison and not venom, come on man, I thought you were better than this. Brooklyn remembers in Dr. Wu's video logs that there is an anti-venom back at the E750 lab. Hearing this, Yasmina runs into the fray, legging it for the research facility. The campers try to stop her, but it's too late. The campers then brainstorm with each other, trying to figure out a way to keep the Scorpius from Sammy. Brooklyn then notes how it seemed to be attracted to fire, as it did earlier during its initial attack. With this in mind, Ben and Darius set off to blow something up, mainly lookout points since it's high enough for the Scorpius to see. I mean, if you guys wait long enough. While Brooklyn and Kenji stay behind to care for Sammy, and like time itself, the storm passes Nublar. And with that, Yasmina continues through the forest. She makes it over a river but lands short and gets swept away. Luckily, she manages to save herself and continue on foot. She soon finds the research facility, however the door is blocked by a tree due to the storm. I mean, it could be worse, at least the Scorpius is— oh my god! Thankfully for Yasmina, the Scorpius doesn't detect her, and moves on to the raptor paddock. Once it passes, she manages to move the log and open the door. She runs inside and manages to find the antivenom in the clutter. She then makes her way out, but is soon confronted by the Scorpius, letting out an ear-shattering screech. Both the Yasmina and the Scorpius eye each other, before Yasmina channels her inner Joestar and the Scorpius then gives chase. Meanwhile, with Ben and Darius, Ben leads Darius to a can of gas he stashed away in case of emergencies. The duo then make their way to Lookout Point and prep a crudely made bomb. They light it and send it off on one of the gondolas. The boys prep for what should be a notable explosion, and then— well, Yasmina's gone. It's a damn shame, because back with Yaz and the Scorpius, it's not good. The Scorpius is not breaking a sweat as it pushes Yasmina to her absolute limits. She jumps over the same river and this time makes it, but not without the cost of her ankle again. And soon a Scorpius finds her. Out of breath with another busted ankle, Yaz challenges the Scorpius, but that won't be necessary because the gas bomb ends up working once the gondola makes it to its final destination. The Scorpius, hearing and now seeing the explosion, then makes its way to Lookout Point, leaving Yasmina a clear path to camp. The two parties then rush back, with Yasmina being the first. The campers then administer the anti-venom, and it works. But Sammy's still under the venom's effects, so it's going to take some time before she's at full strength. With the storm past and Scorpius elsewhere, the campers make a break for the boat, packing up what they can salvage after the attack, but Ben runs off into the jungle yet again. This time, he's trying to find Bumpy. Darius sends the rest of the campers to the boat while he goes after Ben. He then tells the campers if he doesn't make it back before sunrise to leave without him. Despite the protest, the two parties go on their way. After encountering a Sinoceratops with a Scorpius quill on its tail, Darius removes it, only to be treated with a threat display as a thank you. Anyway, Darius almost falls off a cliff before being saved by Ben. The two of them then traverse the jungle, trying to find Bumpy. Meanwhile, with the main group of campers, they soon get lost due to the many stampedes the Scorpius has caused. Kenshi then remembers how some of the trees near the docks were missing its bark because—
whenever we're on our way to the boat, Darius is always like, did you know that Stegosauruses pull bark off the trees to blah 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 blah? Because he always sees the tree with the missing bark. If we find that, we find the boat.
So they look around trying to find these trees before a stampeding herd of Parasaurolophuses descend on the campers. What is causing the stampede? Oh, you know who it is. During the chase, Kenji manages to find the path to the dock, and the campers manage to get to the boat. Back with Ben and Darius, they manage to find Bumpy, but before the duo can make it to the boat, Ben drops a bombshell, revealing he's hoping to stay behind and live on Nublar. The two campers naturally get into a scuffle, breaking the walkie-talkie in the process. Though it's not fully broken, they can receive messages, but they can't give messages. Anyway, they figured this out when Brooklyn states that they just encountered the Scorpius. But before Ben and Darius stop fighting, Bumpy then moves away from them and meets with an ankylosaur herd, which welcomes her with open clubs, I guess? And they assimilate her to the herd. But then the herd starts acting up, because the Scorpius makes its way to the herd. But being smaller and ultimately weaker than the Indominus, the hybrid has no effect. It soon retreats, and the herd returns to caring for Bumpy. Ben and Darius then make their way back to the boat, with Ben following suit so he can give a proper goodbye. And Darius makes an interesting point about the Scorpius Rex. How it managed to get from one point of the island to where they are would probably make it the fastest dinosaur currently residing on Isla Nublar. With the sun rising, the duo make it back to the docks, while the other campers wait patiently. Now, it's not exactly implied in the show, but these two shots aren't happening at the same time. But anyway, once Darius and Ben make it to the docks, the campers had already left without them. But that's the least of their worries. You think things are bad? Well, guess what? They get worse! Because once Darius and Ben make it to the docks, a Scorpius corners them with its heat-seeking, venom-quilled head ass. And if that's not bad enough, it gets even worse! How? Because the Scorpius has yet another trick up its sleeve! And it being, there's not one Scorpius,
This is getting out of hand. Now there are two of them.
but luckily for Ben and Darius, the two Scorpius Rexes are more interested in fighting each other. The point is, though, there's two of them now. Everybody run. After the Scorpiuses tussle, Darius and Ben get out of the limo and decide to stop the Scorpiuses. They'd honestly be a big problem if they decide to reproduce some more. So the two mad lads head back into the jungle to get the tranq rifle from the Jeep. Meanwhile, not too far offshore, the other campers decide to head back to Nublar to find Ben and Darius. Once the boat docks, the campers check around to see if the Scorpius Rexes have cleared the area. However, they only find the limo and a scared Stegosaurus. Anyway, the campers find a set of tracks leading into the forest and follow them. Meanwhile, Ben and Darius, they are in the middle of a Brachiosaurus stampede. They manage to get away. Meanwhile, the other campers would be welcomed by the aftermath of said stampede. They soon come across a baby Brachiosaurus, and instead of abandoning it, they manage to call one of the adults over. And according to the showrunners, this is the same Brachiosaurus from the first Jurassic Park, you know, the one that the first visitors saw. So, yeah, the adult then collects the youngster, and they retreat into the forest. Man, I wonder if the Jurassic World series will use this Brachiosaurus again. Why do I hear Sherbert's Ava Maria? Anyways, the campers find Ben and Darius' tracks and continue to follow them. Meanwhile, Ben and Darius, they make it back to the turned over Jeep to get the tranq rifle, and soon, all the campers are together once again. Darius fills the other campers of the second Scorpius, and the group agree to take the two hybrids down. But it's going to be pretty hard to take them down, especially since they're up in the trees. A Scorpius gives chase, before getting distracted again. But are things ever easy for the campers? No, because once they enter the old visitor center, they are soon greeted by the second Scorpius. Nice shot. The Scorpius then chases the kids into the center, before the campers lock themselves in the same kitchen that Lex and Tim used to hide from the Velociraptors. But they don't stay hidden for long, as the Scorpius rams its way into the kitchen. Kenji manages to distract the hybrid using the kitchen stoves, and the campers make their escape. But they don't get far, as Blue re-enters the visitor center. And here, she meets the Scorpiuses. Man, where's the T-Rex when you need her? The second Scorpius shows up, and the battle between the two causes damage to the visitor center, making the infrastructure more unstable. After a quick wordless exchange between Blue and Darius, Blue then throws herself into the fight. After the campers push over some scaffolding, aiding in the destruction of the visitor center. The campers make haste and get out, with Blue lagging not too far behind, before the whole visitor center collapses on the two hybrids, killing them. The campers then make their way back to the boat, taking in the last of Isla Nublar. Once at the docks, Ben gives his goodbye, and the campers part ways, leaving on the boat as another storm begins to roll in. But after Ben takes a few steps back to Isla Nublar, he comes to a realization and runs back to the docks, dives headfirst into the waters, and decides to head back home with the others. The main reason why Ben didn't want to leave is because, well, I'll let him explain.
I guess I kind of realized that since I found myself on the island, I could take that newfound self somewhere else now.
Well said, Ben. The campers set a course and finally make their way off the island. Well, until a couple of helicopters begin to surround their boat and head into the interior of the island. And this, guys, is where things get really interesting. Two of the three choppers make their way to the island, while the third chopper stays above the campers' boat, demanding they return to port. The campers are quite hesitant, not sure if these people are here to save them or here for something else. Spoiler alert, it's B! But soon, the campers oblige and agree to return to the dock. Once there, the people in the chopper are surprised to see them. Told you. The storm wreaks havoc with the communication systems on the chopper, so the pilot isn't able to reach the other teams. When 3 of the 6 campers get on, the people on the chopper let the kids know that they've been on the island for a total of 6 months. But before everyone can get on the chopper and head back, the resident Tyrannosaur reappears. Where have you been? Did you not know what happened in the past month or so? The chopper pilot takes off, leaving the other campers and one of her partners on the ground, and her partner soon becomes a snack to the T-Rex. After the Rex fails to take down the chopper, she soon turns her attention to the remaining campers and chases them through the forest. Meanwhile, just outside the Jurassic World Lagoon, a small submersible makes its way to the mosasaur enclosure. It doesn't take the pilots of the small submarine long to find what they're looking for, the remains of the Indominus Rex. Sawing off one of the ribs, they send the sample to the surface. However, it would inadvertently wake up the resident mosasaur. One of the 3 helicopters then retrieves the specimen, with the controller now beginning to shut the gates to the lagoon. However, for the submersible, it has a run-in with the mosasaur. Meanwhile in the jungle, the Rex loses the campers, but manages to find Yasmina, before cornering her to a log. Before the Rex can help herself, Brooklyn and Darius manage to lure the Rex away from Yaz, and manage to get it stuck in some vines, before the Rex soon turns its attention to Main Street. There, the specimen retrieval team land the chopper close to the controller, while the controller tries to reach the submersible. But the helicopter pilots soon notice something moving in the trees, or more accurately, something moving the trees themselves. Everyone on the chopper tries to warn the man, but I think he knows. The Rex then tries to grab him, but only manages to step on his tablet, which halts the marine gates from closing. The controller then makes a jump for the ladder, but he's not getting off that easy. The Rex tries to bring down the chopper one more time before the ladder snaps. Now, the controller is safe. The helicopter then escapes into the stormy night, with the mosasaur leaving its lagoon. Oh boy, the fresh hell this thing is going to cause. By the way, while all of this was happening, Brooklyn, Darius, and Yasmina were watching the whole thing from afar. The trio then spot another chopper and make their way to it. And lo and behold, it's Dr. Wu, who calms down, and not knowing if the other teams were successful in retrieving the Indominus sample, Wu and his armed entourage make their way to his secret lab to retrieve his laptop. The same lab that housed the Scorpius. Overhearing them, the 3 campers surmise Wu wants to make another hybrid dinosaur. Nah, that's crazy. What are you crazy? What? With this in mind, and knowing the devastation the 2 hybrids were able to do, the campers devise a plan to get to the lab first, retrieve the laptop, and turn it in to the Costa Rican authorities. And like that, they're off. Meanwhile, with the other campers, they beg the pilot to go back, but the helicopter is soon attacked by a flock of pteranodons. They manage to lose them, only to crash from a brachiosaurus. Back with Brooklyn, Darius, and Yasmina, the trio make it back to the lab, but more debris is blocking the door. They try to clear it, but run out of time, as Wu and his team find the lab as well. Wu's team then begins clearing the debris themselves, while the trio of campers sneak into the lab via the air ducts. Meanwhile, with the other campers, the helicopter is suspended on some vines, but is slowly going down. Ben, Kenji, and Sammy manage to make it out before the helicopter falls and blows up. Also, the pilot's missing. She's not in the cockpit nor below the chopper, so what happened to her? We don't know. Back at the lab, Wu's team manages to clear the debris, but some claw marks on the door makes him hesitant and requests his entourage to follow him inside. Meanwhile in the lab, the kids look around and manage to find the laptop, just in time too before Wu's team enters. They search the lab but are unable to find the laptop. They then make their way to another room before Hawks, one of the security team members in Wu's entourage, hears something. The campers manage to escape, well, not all of them. Hawks catches Brooklyn while she begs the other 2 campers to grab the laptop and run. There's not much they can do while Brooklyn is dragged down in the vents. When Hawk returns, Wu actually recognizes Brooklyn as one of the campers. Meanwhile, 2 members of the security team go after Darius and Yasmina, however they end up finding Limbo and Chaos, who eats one of the team members. Hawks, the surviving member, yells out into the forest knowing Darius and Yasmina can hear him, saying if they don't return the laptop near the helicopter in 2 hours, well, let's just say you don't need a dinosaur to die on Nublar. Anyway, all the campers minus Brooklyn meet up back at port, where Darius and Yasmina break the news about Brooklyn. Speaking of Brooklyn, she's not exactly giving her captors the easiest of time. She manages to lure a pair of Monolophosaurs, which gives her a window to escape. However, Wu's team manages to catch up to her, recapturing her, thanks to the vents the campers used earlier. Meanwhile, with the campers, there's a bit of a predicament. Darius and Yasmina don't want to give Wu the laptop to avoid him making another dinosaur hybrid. However, Ben and Kenji oppose this, saying it's the only way to get Brooklyn back. Darius comes up with a compromise, suggesting they copy all the data using a flash drive that Sammy has, and then wiping the laptop before returning it to Wu, and then bring that flash drive to the proper authorities. With the new plan, the campers return to camp. Sammy and Yasmina start the long process of copying and wiping the laptop, while Ben and Darius devise a plan. Kenji, however, is concerned about what could go wrong, but Darius assures him it will go off without a hitch. But that's a tall maybe, mate. Meanwhile, with Brooklyn, she begins to probe Dr. Wu. While Wu believes he's a visionary, but Brooklyn cuts him down to size by telling him of what the Indominus and Scorpius have done. And she actually seems to get through to him. The team cross a log over a river, and one of the mercenaries trips and falls, being swept away. See? Back at camp, the campers managed to copy all the data to the hard drive, but that took them an hour to do. It's going to take another hour to erase all the data from the laptop. Ben goes off to recruit some help. You know where this is going. While Darius finalizes the plan with Sammy and Yasmina. However, little does everyone know that someone in the camp has stolen the laptop. The other campers soon realize this and make their way to the chopper in the valley. Meanwhile in the valley, Hawk, Wu, and Brooklyn prepare to leave. Ben and Bumpy make it, but stay hidden in the trees, before Kenji shows up with the laptop, showing up earlier than expected to Ben's surprise. The two parties make the exchange before Ben and a herd of ankylosaurs barrel towards the chopper. In the kerfuffle, Brooklyn manages to escape. Soon, the other campers join the chaos. Sammy manages to snatch the laptop, while Brooklyn and Kenji make their way through the stampede. However, Sammy and Yasmina are cornered by Hawks. With no way out, Sammy tosses the laptop to Hawks, but only for it to be destroyed by a charging ankylosaur. The ankylosaur herd then disperse. Hawks and Wu load themselves to the chopper, and the campers regroup. On the chopper, Wu soon learns that the Indominus retrieval was a success, so they can just go home without needing the data from the laptop. However, Hawks, feeling a little, just a tad bit spiteful, wants to kill the kids. I'm pretty sure that's what he was aiming for. He pursues them with Wu urging him to stop. Soon he manages to get through the Hawks, and the two of them leave the island. Meanwhile with the campers, they give Bumpy a proper goodbye and make their way back to the boat. But not before Kenji voices his mind on Darius risking Brooklyn's life, and some serious tension forms between the two campers. Well, mainly Kenji, he's hating Darius a lot, but like that, the campers finally make it off of Isla Nublar, finally making their way back home, marking the end of Camp Cretaceous Season 3. Oh look, Season 4. With the compass in hand, the boat seaworthy, the campers set course for Costa Rica. But despite the situation being better than before, the tension between Darius and Kenji is still high, evident after they had lunch together. But soon the campers are met with a stowaway, a lone compy. Most of the campers try to catch it, while Brooklyn and Kenji repair some of the boat's damaged control panels, mainly the radar and the radio. Brooklyn proves to be a whiz at this, thanks to her two dads who own a repair shop. Meanwhile, with the rest of the campers, they manage to corner the compy while it's chewing on some rope. Just as they're about to catch it, the boat gets snagged on something. With a working radar, Kenji surmises the boat has drifted into a kelp forest, and the propeller itself is snagged. Darius then jumps into the water to untangle the boat and manages to free the propeller. But soon, the radar picks up something else in the water, and it's a shark. The campers scramble to get Darius out of the water. However, the rope they used is the same rope that the compy was chewing on. And because of that, the rope snaps. And if you think things can't get any worse, then hello, you must be new. Welcome to Camp Cretaceous. But the shark soon proves to be the least of the kids' worries, as the sonar picks up something else that's a lot bigger than the shark. Keeping my promise I stated earlier, the Mosasaurus proceeds to help itself to the shark. Kenji then jumps into the water to save Darius, who himself has his leg trapped in the kelp forest. Kenji manages to get Darius free, and the two forgive each other once they're back on the boat, ending what could have been a significant plot point, but Alright. Brooklyn then steers everyone out of harm's way, but the mosasaur isn't done with the campers. The marine reptile attacks the boat directly, and after Yasmina falsely identifies it as a dinosaur and not a marine reptile, the mosasaur continues its assault on the boat before Kenji spots some land. As he tries to steer the boat closer to the island, the mosasaur body slams the boat, sending the campers adrift to the island. Oh yeah, and the compy survived as well. But now stranded, the kids make their way into a cave. Once they exit the cave, the campers find themselves in Australia? They spot something in the distance and make their way to it. At first the trek seems alright, but then the heat starts getting to the campers. But at least there's a nice breeze. Oh! A haboob! The campers soon get caught up in the storm, with Brooklyn and Kenji being separated from the others in a dried ravine. The storm soon stops, but Brooklyn and Kenji are nowhere to be found. The remaining campers find Brooklyn's jacket and decide to follow the ravine. Meanwhile, at the bottom of the ravine, Brooklyn and Kenji follow what sounds like water behind the walls of the ravine. Eventually, the campers manage to find each other and fresh water to boot, and some food. Ben encourages everyone to eat the berries, as he thinks these are the same type of berries from Nublar, but then he starts thinking they might actually be poisonous, which they aren't. The campers then make a break for the shiny thing they saw earlier, but it turns out to be a metal platform, with disturbingly enough, animal remains right beside it. The campers then make a campfire and rest for the night, but not before screaming into the abyss. As the campers sleep, Ben suddenly wakes up to something. The other campers stir awake as well as he alerts everybody. It's probably just an animal, or even people. I mean, they're not on Nublar, so logically that... What the fuck? The campers soon come face to face with a saber-toothed cat. Ben manages to distract the cat and lure it into another dry ravine. Before Kenji tackles the cat, the two run from the prehistoric feline, before the other campers manage to scare it off with a boulder and rocks. The next day, the campers continue through the desert before Kenji trips over a robotic leg, and with it, footprints. The campers follow the prints before hitting what looks to be an image-manipulated wall. Scratch that, image-manipulated door. Brooklyn manages to open it before the campers hesitantly enter, followed by the compy. They don't explore too long before entering what seems to be another habitat. This time, something more like a redwood forest rather than the arid Australian desert. So if the desert biome has a saber-toothed cat, I'm guessing this would have I guess a short-faced bear, or possibly a ground sloth. Or a T-Rex. And soon the Rex is met with another. The two campers soon evade the Rexes and hide.
Does every island have dinosaurs now?
Ha! Oh, Brooklyn. Soon. The campers then realize they're not alone. As Ben points out, a scientist watching the two Rexes play. The campers and scientists move out of the area, with the campers catching her up on their misadventures, which she understandably finds hard to believe. The scientist's name is Dr. May Turner, who works in the field of behavioral paleoneurobiology. After Darius geeks out a bit, the campers soon realize they cannot call for help. Turner makes it apparent that all communication on the island stays within the island, so no phones, no online chatter, etc. The campers are a bit hesitant of Turner, but follow her back to her living quarters behind a waterfall, but not before she warns them of a specific nook in the forest. Turner settles the campers down, where she entertains them with some food and drinks. When May steps out to prep the campers some food, they snoop around and find out that May is working for Manticore. Now she's definitely sus to them, and the campers now become even more suspicious of the danger nook. Yasmina suggests Brooklyn and Kenji go check it out, while Darius and Sammy stay behind, hoping to get some answers from Turner. Ben and Yasmina will tag along with Brooklyn and Kenji as well. When May returns, the two campers left distract her, and state the other campers are napping. Okay. On their way to the nook, the campers soon get jumped by the compy, along with what the actual Chilean sea bass fuck is that? How many sharks has this show jumped already? Anyways, the robot doesn't take kindly to the compy being in the biodome, and kills it. Good God. Turner is notified of this through her tablet, so her, Darius, and Sammy make their way to the robot, and Turner is mortified at the robot killing the compy. Turner then distracts the robot long enough for the campers to return to Turner's living quarters. Back at the cave, Turner catches the kids up on the robot, which is dubbed Brad's. which is an acronym for Biorobotic Assistance Droid. Turner states that the campers should be safe in the living quarters as the Brads don't usually enter, and Sammy opens up to Turner about what Manticore has done to her family. You know, the blackmail. Before long, May gets a notification on her tablet. It's feeding time for the Rexes. She leaves the living quarters, but is tailed by Darius and Sammy, while Ben, Brooklyn, Kenji, and Yasmina stay behind. Once at the feeding platform, the group find a slightly unusual sight. One of the Brads is stationed near the feeding platform, which is something they never do. Before the Brad leaves the area, the two Rexes appear, and they start feeding. All is good when suddenly the Rexes start acting more aggressive than usual, and then the mother-daughter pair, dubbed Big Edie and Little Edie, sorry if I didn't mention that, begin fighting each other, May noticing this in their brainwaves. Before the Rexes can seriously injure themselves, May calls in a Brad to trank the two animals, and they soon subside and rest. The three of them investigate the feeding platform before Sammy finds something beside the Rex's food. Oh god, it's a giant marshmallow! Meanwhile, back at the living quarters, the armored door soon opens, and walking in is not Darius, May, and Sammy, but instead, a Brad. The Brad scans the living quarters before spotting Ben and Yasmina, but Kenji manages to destroy it by knocking its head off. Not too long after that, walks in May, Darius, and Sammy. Seeing the bit of carnage in their living quarters, along with the marshmallow, Turner soon accepts that Manticore might have ulterior motives, and soon begins studying the unknown substance in the T-Rex's food. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the main villain of the show soon reveals himself. It's a neckbeard. Also, I want to point out that while a lot of people, including myself, theorized the campers were going to be stranded on Isla Sorna, the map here actually looks a lot like Isla Muetra. So, who knows, maybe. Back in the living quarters, the campers play a game of poker. Before Turner asks for one of the campers to pick some chestnuts, Yasmina insists on going, but soon discovers her sketchbook, a book that should have been lost at sea or back at Nublar. Soon Yasmina is surrounded by an Indominus Rex? What? Toro, a Cerrado, and good god, there's even a Scorpius Rex. So at this point, we know that this is reality. Yasmina wakes up from her dream, startling May slightly. Anyways, May continues experimenting with the giant marshmallow and discovers it's the cause of the T-Rexes going berserk. With this in mind, May urges that the campers should leave the island ASAP. And honestly, no argument there, May. May suggests a supply plane and use that to escape. While it won't be back for another 10 days, the group devises a plan to make it come sooner by messing with the T-Rex's feeding platform. However, when devising the plan, Yasmina starts acting a little weird, to the point that May notices. Despite only meeting the campers a couple of days ago, she knows something is up. But everyone gets into positions and begin executing the plan. Darius and Sammy find the power box to the platform and destroy it. Ben and Kenji with May keep an eye on the Rexes, while Brooklyn and Sammy get rid of the tampered Rex food. However, thanks to a cold, Kenji accidentally wakes up the Rexes. Big Edie is active, but Little Edie is finding it hard to get up. She's still badly injured since the fight. So Big Edie makes her way to the feeding platform in hopes to get her young some food. Meanwhile, Ben, Kenji, and May make their way to Darius and Yasmina. Everyone makes a run for it. However, as the Rex approaches, Yasmina freezes up and can't move. It's not till Kenji comes back for her that the two remaining campers clear the area. Big Edie, not finding food, soon heads back, and like that, a supply plane is coming to the island within 3 hours. However, the celebration is cut short when everyone is discovered by a Brad. May tries to fend it off with commands, but the Brad overrides them and pursues the campers. The group try to make a break for the airlock that would send them straight to the plane, but out comes 2 more Brads from that very same airlock. So May leads the campers to another airlock that will take them to another biodome. It will take a little more time, but they should still be able to make the plane. Soon the group manage to evade the Brads and make their way to the biodome, which isn't Australia or another redwood national forest, but this time Antarctica. The group get on some snow gliders and make their way through the biome. Yas has another nightmare, which May gets really concerned about. But yeah, they're almost home. Or so we think. On the way to the exit airlock, the group come across a lone Kentrosaurus named Pierce, and due to the cold, the Kentrosaur collapses, suffering from hypothermia. May insists the kids take the gliders to the supply plane and get out, But Darius soon shoots down the idea, stating they need both gliders to save Pierce, and then speaks for all the campers, saying they are willing to help, even though some sideway glances with each other says otherwise. They hook up the sleds for Pierce to sit on, and attach said sleds to the gliders, and then make their way to the airlock. But soon the group is pursued by another Brad, less interested in the campers and more concerned that they're moving Pierce. After a quick scuffle, Yasmina manages to send the Brad crashing through the frozen lake. The kids make it to the airlock with Pierce and May. May then leads the campers to one last airlock, which will lead them straight to the supply plane. Before Yasmina joins the others, May stops her, knowing what's up, the nightmares, the panic attacks, etc., and suggests Yasmina to talk to her friends. But who needs that? They're almost home! Shit. At the sight of the plane leaving, Yasmina breaks down, but Darius tries to lighten the mood with the fact that they did the right thing. And right there, as Ben and Darius go back to find May, the remaining campers open up with each other. The trauma of living on Nublar has taken its toll, and they've all been having nightmares. Meanwhile, elsewhere on the island, this dude disrespects the Brad, hears about more Brads getting murked, blah 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 blah. That's the end of that episode. Meanwhile, with the campers, they rejoin with May, with her making a promise that she'll get them off this island. But then Darius steps in, saying they can't leave, we got to, and say it with me now, we have to save the dinosaurs. The campers split up to assure the Brads hadn't tainted the T-Rex meat again, and get Pierce back into the desert biome, while Sammy and Yasmina decide to go back to May's living quarters to rest. Honestly, they need it. And like that, everyone heads to where they need to be. Meanwhile, in the snow biome, we follow Snow Glider and a lone Brad. The neckbeard that ends up walking out is Cash D. Langford. He's the one in charge of the machinery and software of the island. And let's just say he's not the most sympathetic character.
I gave you guys military-grade processing units, and lizards with the intelligence of a banana are outsmarting you? How?
Hold that thought, Cash. He and one of the Brads try to locate the Brad Yasmina sent through the ice. But as the Brad can't seem to give Cash any answers, he repays the robot in kind by sending it down to its fallen comrade. Meanwhile, with Ben, Darius, and May, they manage to get Pierce out of the snow biome, but the Kentrosaurus soon panics. May manages to soothe the animal with some calls on her tablet, effectively communicating with the panicking animal, and actually manage to calm him down. Sammy and Yasmina try to get some rest, but soon get interrupted by a Brad and Cash. They hide under the bed and avoid detection, but soon Sammy realizes something. She recognizes Cash's voice. But more on that later. Cash snoops around May's place before finding her research on dinosaur communication. Cash and the Brad soon leave the area with May's research. Sammy then tries to follow Cash, however, Yasmina recommends to Sammy that they should stay put, but Sammy has other plans. Meanwhile, with Brooklyn and Kenji, they spot another Brad tainting their Rex meat once again. The duo go down and try to get rid of the giant marshmallow cubes before Big Edie arrives. However, she doesn't stick around long to eat. She actually collects one of the meat chunks and carries it back to little Edie, who's looking a little worse for wear. It looks like the younger Tyrannosaur never got the medical attention she needed. Meanwhile, in the desert biome, May gives Darius a chance to play around with the dinosaur communicator thing, and Darius tries to communicate with Pierce. It goes alright, I guess. May takes the communicator back and tries to get Pierce some food, but soon the trio, or quarter if you want to include Pierce, soon get interrupted by Brooklyn and Kenji, informing May of little Edie's condition. May then reveals this must be the work of her boss, who's Cash. May instructs the campers to stay put and help Pierce find food, while she goes to confront her boss. But before leaving, she gives the dinosaur communicator to Darius. But as soon as May goes, Sammy and Yasmina enter the desert biome, where Sammy reveals it was Cash himself who blackmailed Sammy's family. The other campers urge Sammy to slow down and not to confront Cash alone, but Sammy, angered by Cash being here, moves forward with her own plan. And while the other campers are distracted by Pierce, Sammy slips away and makes her way to Cash, who's held up in the jungle biome. Should note the jungle biome and the forest biome are two completely different biomes. Meanwhile, in the jungle biome, May makes her way to Cash before getting ambushed by Brads and Velociraptors, but saved by security drones. May ready to confront Cash, but Cash reveals he stole May's research on dinosaur communication. Sammy makes it in time to see the two argue, but before she can join in, Yasmina tackles her to the ground, and soon followed by the other campers. Eventually Cash loses patience with May, so he sends his Brads after her. And then, the pair of velociraptors who definitely don't have the intelligence of a banana. Running through the forest, May is soon saved by the campers. One by one, the campers manage to take out the Brads. With one left, May goes in to deal a blow before one of the velociraptors jumps on the robot. And since these are Dex Machina raptors, one of them begins to attack May. Soon the second raptor joins in and surrounds the group, but soon Sammy makes a dive for the destroyed Brad and fires one of the shock pellets at the raptors, driving them away. The campers then retreat with a wounded May in hand. Once they find a little nook in the jungle biome, they tend to May's wounds. Elsewhere in the same biome, Cash assesses the area and finds May's jacket, thinking that the raptors have killed her. He then uses his phone to call the real boss of this operation, but little does Cash know he's being watched by Ben, who now discovers the existence of the phone. Regrouped, Ben discloses the existence of the phone, and the campers try to figure out their next move. Darius argues about leaving because dinosaurs, while everyone else urges the importance of getting the phone. Not only to get help or the proper authorities, but to get May proper medical attention. May's tussle with the velociraptors not leaving her in the best of conditions. And with makeshift bandages out of Lee's, it's only a matter of time before she gets a nasty infection. But before the campers could come to a conclusive decision, they are interrupted by another pack of Brads scanning the area. The group managed to avoid detection as the Brads pass by. When the Brads clear out, majority of the campers follow them, while Ben heads back to the snow biome, remembering the snow gliders had a first aid kit, so he heads out to retrieve it to patch May up. Brad that Brooklyn and Yasmina follow lead them back to a Brad warehouse, where sitting inside, fixing one of the Brads, is Cash. The pair try to snatch the phone, but after Cash does another freak out, takes his phone and heads back to the main facility. Meanwhile in the snow biome, Ben manages to get the first aid kit and some water, but soon runs into another Brad. Ben manages to avoid detection and makes it back to May. He tries to tend to her wounds, but she decks our boy in the face. Twice. Meanwhile with the other campers, the Brad takes them to the forest biome where it scans the two T-Rexes, finding Big Edie to be suitable for a test. Soon some drones come in and shock the Rex away from her young. All the campers can do is watch. Luckily for them, the Rex responds in kind by destroying the Brad. And that's how the drones guide Big Edie to the jungle biome, with the campers following suit. The campers regroup with Ben, Brooklyn, May, and Yasmina, where they talk about their findings. But soon a familiar dinosaur yelp can be heard in the biome. It's Pierce the Kentrosaurus. The campers then go to the compound where Cash is held up, and where they're greeted to Pierce and Big Edie. It looks like Cash is forcing the two dinosaurs to fight. Using the drones as a makeshift barrier to bring them in closer, the campers then devise a plan to stop this. But before the group can mobilize, Yasmina suffers another panic attack. There, she finally admits to Darius about her nightmares. The only reason why she and the other campers didn't tell him was to avoid him feeling bad. So Yasmina and Sammy join Ben to go off to destroy the Brad warehouse in hopes to get Cash out of the compound. Once he leaves, Brooklyn and Kenji would tail him. While he's gone, Darius would sneak into the compound alone to stop the dinos fighting. And then they mobilized their plan. Using one of the snow gliders and a couple of canisters of gas, Ben, Sammy, and Yasmina managed to blow up the warehouse. And like that, Cash leaves the compound, but once he's a ways away, he realizes he left his phone back at the compound, so he sends one of his brats to go get it. Meanwhile, Darius makes a break for the compound, avoiding the fighting dinosaurs, but is soon pursued by a lone velociraptor. Darius manages to get into the compound and stop the dinosaurs from fighting, but is soon interrupted by the Brad. Once Darius leaves the control panel, however, the drones go back in formation. He now needs to make a decision: get the phone or stop the dinosaurs from fighting. He actually goes for the phone. Once he destroys the Brad, he manages to make a phone call, but is soon captured by Cash. But who does he call? His brother. But we'll get back to him in Season 5. Ignoring potential future plot points, the fight between Pierce and Big Edie continue, as all the campers can do is watch. Inside the compound, Darius is pressed by Cash and Darius pulls a facade. He makes up a story saying he and his dad were survivors that were left on Nublar for 6 months. Darius also holds responsibility for any suspicious activity on the island, like, blowing up the Brad warehouse. Cash, not quite convinced, keeps Darius around, and the two watch the continuing fight between Pierce and Big Edie. Meanwhile outside, the campers try to take out the drones that are forcing the dinosaurs to fight, either with sticks or chucking rocks, but it would be Darius who'd stop the fight, reminding Cash that the dinosaurs aren't necessarily cheap. So with Pierce down for the count, Cash aligns the drones to separate the two animals and send them down to the medbay. Cash himself with Darius go down with Big Edie, while the other campers go back with May. Meanwhile in the medbay, Cash reveals to Darius that Manticore hopes to make another dino island, but rather than a zoo, it's going to be more akin to dinosaurs fighting. So UFC, Jurassic version. Wait a minute! While Cash is doing some work and pitching an idea to his boss, Darius takes the time to visit Big Edie and helps her by removing the thagomizer in her tail. Darius makes it back, only for Cash to order another Brad to release something known as Asset 87. He asks the Brad to release it into the desert biome and have it monitored. The Brad heads off and Darius tails it, but misses the elevator the Brad is on. And then Cash freaks out. Again. Meanwhile with the other campers, May tells them about the underground medbay and tells them to use the feeding platforms to take them down. The next feeding is scheduled to happen in the desert biome with the saber-toothed cat. So the campers make it to the desert biome. Once there, they realize it's a lot hotter than usual, but it doesn't take them long to meet Asset 87, who isn't the same or another saber-toothed cat, but rather a motherfucking Spinosaurus. Yes! By the way, the showrunners humored the idea that this is the same Spinosaurus that was in Jurassic Park 3, which in canon was captured by the Maserati Corps and moved to Nublar for Jurassic World. And assuming that's true, was caught within 6 months after Jurassic World and is now here. I don't know about you guys, but press X to doubt. The Spinosaurus chases them to a ravine where they're faced with the saber-toothed cat. They manage to evade it, but then get cornered, only for the Spinosaurus to save them by eating the saber-toothed cat. But then it soon turns its attention to the campers, but the campers manage to literally slip past it. They make their way to the feeding platform, and rather than screaming at it, jump into the abyss, before the abyss can scream back. Oh god. Back with Darius, to avoid being Dino Chow, he decides to stay on Cash's good side. And he does that by mostly agreeing with what Cash says, and helps him out a bit. But not before taking one of the chips the Brad drops. Soon Cash reveals his own plans. Using May's research of dinosaur communication, Cash would soon go rogue and experiment the possibility of controlling the dinosaurs himself. Cash and Darius then make their way to the lower levels, but just before the door closes, Darius spots his friends and slips past the elevator doors to talk with them, who Cash, surprisingly, doesn't spot him before the elevator doors close. The campers reunited catch each other up on their own adventures, before it's decided that Darius will stay with Cash to feed information to the other campers, while the other campers continue to sabotage the operation. And with that, Darius splits off from the other campers once again. Cash makes it back to the medbay, only to find Darius and the chip he nabbed earlier, saying he just spotted it on the ground and that's why he ran out of the elevator, just so he can grab it. Meanwhile on the mainland, Darius' brother, Brandon, packs some essentials and is implied to go out after Darius. As night descends on the island, the campers begin to surround the compound, waiting for Darius, but before Darius can meet up with the other campers, he overhears Cash talking to his boss, where in 6 days, he and some investors will visit the island. With this in mind, Cash needs to prep his demonstration on the dinosaur control chips. But before Darius can group up with the other campers to tell them what he knows, something almost blows him up. Behold, the next step in Brad evolution. It's Chad. Yeah, say hello to the Brad X, an improved version of the Brads. Nearly indestructible with more advanced systems and weapons, and it will be his new babysitter from now on. Before the two and the Brad X head back into the compound, Darius cryptically holds up 6 fingers for his friends in the tree line. The campers then return to May to catch her up on the situation. They then devise a plan to hack one of the Brad X's, reprogramming it and have it aid Darius. But while concocting this plan, it ends up putting a lot of pressure on Brooklyn, who's the most tech savvy out of all the campers. So the campers head out and try to capture one of the Brad X's, but goes as well as one would think. They follow the Brad X to another warehouse, but ends up being a Brad making factory. From there, Brooklyn tries hacking them, but it ends up being a disaster. Brad X after Brad X, she isn't able to get one working, but after a little pep talk with her fellow campers, they then decide to hack one of the regular Brads and have that reprogram the Brad X's. Meanwhile with Darius, he's sent into the jungle biome to clean up the broken Brads. However, one of the Brad's heads sets off one of his train canisters. As Darius tries to escape, the Brad X captures him. Darius then returns to Cash, who sends him out to do another task. He wants Darius to plant one of his mind control chips into one of the dinosaurs on the island, and Cash chooses the Spinosaurus for Darius the chip.
That thing does not like people.
Yeah, it doesn't. So Darius and the Brad X make it to the desert biome, but before Darius can tag the sailed predator, it wakes up and chases him down. The Brad X, being a Brad X, chases after Darius, thinking he's trying to escape yet again. Which, not 100% wrong. Eventually Darius is stuck between a Spinosaurus and a Brad X, but as the Brad X shoots one of its shock pellets, it hits the Spinosaurus, which seriously pisses it off. As it takes out the Brad X, Darius then uses another Brad head he saw earlier and tries to open its jaws to get the trank canister. With a little effort, he manages to get the gas canister and set it off in front of the Spinosaurus. But then the Spinosaurus almost lands on Darius. When he awakens, the Spinosaurus is knocked out, but not the Brad X, who gives him the chip for the Spinosaurus. But before Darius can plant it in, the Brad X speaks. Oh god, they're sentient now. Brooklyn managed to pull it off and hack the Brad, which reprogrammed the Brad X. Darius then warns the other campers of what's going down in 6 days. Now the campers and Darius can get away with sabotaging the island. Darius and the Brad X make it back to Cash, and it looks like the Spinosaurus, along with other test subjects, had failed. So Cash moves on to the younger dinosaurs. When night falls, the campers sneak into the compound while avoiding the raptors. Some have better success than others. Darius then sends the campers down to the medbay to free the baby dinosaurs. Right after Darius sends the campers down, speak of the devil, Cash tries to make his way down to the medbay to begin experiments early, and then...
Can I play a video game or something?
You're a gamer?
Oh god, no. Oh god, no. And using that, Darius challenges Cash to a game of Jurassic World. The game. Wait, you mean the mobile game from Ludia? Meanwhile in the medbay, the campers split into 3 separate groups. Ben attends to a young Brachiosaur, while Kenji and Sammy are paired up, leaving Yasmina with Brooklyn. But Sammy soon makes a shocking discovery. The animal they're about to free was made using genetic samples from Nublar, the same genetic samples Sam took from the Sinoceratops back in Season 1. But that's the least of it, because instead of cloning a Sinoceratops, Manticore went ahead and made their own hybrid. Behold, the Spinoceratops! So Kenji and Sammy attend to one, while Brooklyn and Sammy find another Sino-Spino. Anyways, the campers manage to get the animals out of their holding rooms and make their way to the main platform. Meanwhile with Darius, he and Cash go a few rounds in the game. Darius starts wiping the floor with Cash, but after the first round, Cash starts using mods and cheat codes. Meanwhile in the medbay, the campers manage to get the 3 baby dinosaurs into the main loading area. To cover the tracks, Brooklyn suggests blowing out one of the fuses. Kenji does this, but one of the Sino-Spinos takes it to heart and charges the fuse box, taking out more fuses than they needed, and unleashes a number of Manticore's more dangerous assets, like the Ceratosaurus. The campers tried to maneuver the babies around the Cerato to the biodomes, but eventually get found out, and like that, a chase ensues. Meanwhile with Darius and Cash, Cash is soon alerted to the power outage in the medbay and makes his way down there. Darius follows him in hopes to give his friends a little more time. Meanwhile with the campers, they split up. Brooklyn and Kenshi with one of the Sinospinos go into the snow biome, while everyone else heads to the jungle biome. By the time Darius and Cash make it down to the med bay, the campers and baby dinosaurs are long gone, but not the Ceratosaurus. The duo hold up in the elevator while Cash sends in some brats to trank the dinosaurs. After that, Cash checks the babies and freaks out again, finding out that they are gone. At this point, Cash is getting really suspicious of Darius. As Cash investigates the medbay, he soon discovers the babies must be in the biomes. Before he sends an army of Brad X's to search for them, he unintentionally commands another Brad to release the new assets they recently collected to the forest biome. Meanwhile in the biomes, Brooklyn and Kenshi develop their relationship a little more while playing mother and father with the Sinospino. Why am I mentioning this? The three of them soon leave to meet with the others in the jungle biome. Meanwhile there, Ben, Sammy, and Yasmina continue to babysit the two other baby dinosaurs. But soon Ben spots one of the Brad X's, and the robot closes in on the baby Brachiosaur. Once it captures it, Ben watches the whole ordeal from afar and follows the convoy of Brads. The Brads then bring the baby straight to Cash, and he manages to implant his chip. To the dismay of everyone witnessing the event, it works. Shocked by the sight, Darius loses his composure and leaves, trying his best not to raise Cash's suspicions. Meanwhile, in the nook of the jungle biome, Brooklyn, Kenji, and the Sinospino should mention the Sinospinos have names. That's Rebel, with the other being Angel. But soon the campers are joined by Ben, telling them what he saw. Back with Darius, he tells everyone what Ben has already said. Knowing the chip works, the campers then come up with a plan to keep Cash off the board. The campers use the Sinospinos as bait to lure Cash into the forest biome. However, a bit of a problem, because once everyone, Cash included, enter the forest biome, they're soon accosted by those new assets, a flock of Pteranodon. One of them snatches the tablet Ben is using, while another one flies into the dome itself. I don't know why, I just wanted to show that clip. Eventually, Ben manages to get the tablet from the Pteranodon, and before he can try to get it back, the security drones come in to round up the Pteranodons, allowing Cash safe passage. Once inside, the campers soon manage to lure Cash and try to knock him out using the trank gas from the Brad X, but nothing happens. So Ben improvises. He sneaks himself into May's living quarters, and using the tablet soundboard, lures Cash in using the Sinoceratops calls. Both Ben and Darius leave the cave, locking Cash in May's living quarters. The campers then regroup and celebrate the achievement. But as Ben talks to the baby Brachiosaur, who he now names Firecracker, he reminisces of Bumpy, thinking she probably forgot about him, but little does he know, Bumpy has it. I'm not crying. You're crying. And from now on, the campers just spend their time relaxing with May and the baby dinosaurs. So with that, all seems good. When the hell are they going to get off this island? However, there's a little trouble in Paradise, as Angel and Rebel start becoming lethargic. The campers believe it might be the biome, so Brooklyn, Sammy, and Yasmina decide to take them through the different biomes to see which one would fare them best. While that's happening, Ben and May take Firecracker to the infirmary to remove the control chip, leaving Darius and Kenji to feed Cash. However, when the duo make it to the cave where he's trapped in, the door is wide open with no Cash inside. So to summarize the adventures of Brooklyn, Sammy, and Yasmina, they first take the Sinospinos to the desert biome, mainly because the Spinosaurs seem to be doing alright in there, but they didn't agree with it. Also, the resident Spinosaurus didn't take kindly to them entering, so that's another good reason to not leave them in there. But then they go to the Antarctic biome, and they seem to be thriving there now. Also, the surgery with Firecracker goes off without a hitch. They managed to remove the mind control chip, and she seems to be doing fine. Which leaves us to Darius and Kenji. The two of them search the jungle biome, checking the compound to see any signs of Cash. Eventually, the two split up. Darius sends Kenji to pick up Ben and May, while he heads to the control room of the compound to activate the drones to keep Cash from entering. But as Darius enters the main control room, Cash walks in with his boss named Daniel. Darius manages to duck to cover before the two adults can spot him. As they're leaving, they talk about how to dispose of Pierce the Kintrosaurus. Daniel then suggests feeding the injured animal to the new assets that they just placed in the newly constructed swamp biome. And apparently these new assets are real bad. So bad, in fact, they actually earned Cash's respect. Overhearing the convo and waiting for the two men to leave, Darius then tries to get out, but then bumps into Kenji, who just missed Daniel and Cash. Darius warns Kenji about the feeding before the pair leave the compound. Once outside, Ben and May are there waiting. Darius catches them up on the new biome, the new assets, and Pierce being disposed of. The two groups then split up again. Ben and May are sent to stop the Brads, while Darius and Kenji check out the new biome to see if they can do anything about the new assets. Meanwhile, in the snow biome, the group lead the Sinospinos, but as the three campers leave the biome, they're sent into the frozen lake due to a dispute. But they manage to get to another snow glider with the help of the Sinospinos. But as they're about to leave, Darius's Brad X spooks them and warns them about Pierce. Meanwhile, with Darius and Kenji, they walk into the swamp biome with makeshift shields and bags full of the Brad's shock pellets. As they traverse the landscape, a familiar shrill is heard, and the assets reveal themselves to be a colony of Dilophosauruses, the first time the species has ever been seen in the franchise since 1993. Kenji and Darius can't hold off the dinos, so they make a break for it through the biome itself. Meanwhile, in the medbay, Ben and May find Pierce being led by the Brads. Ben fights some of them off, while May makes her way to Pierce, but soon they become surrounded, and the feeding platform soon raises itself into the swamp biome. The trio are then met with Darius and Kenji, who instead of being surrounded by Brads, are now surrounded by the pack of Dilophosaurs. But then the remaining campers from the snow biome come charging in on a snow glider. Scaring the Dilos away, together once again the group celebrate. Oh yeah, by this point everyone knows that Kenji and Brooklyn are a thing, in case you wanted to know. But something weird is amiss, because Kenji asks Brooklyn how did they find them, but then Brooklyn is confused because she thought they sent Darius's Brad to warn them. Insert Admiral Akbar meme here. And just on cue, an army of Brads surround the campers, May and Pierce, with Catch leading the charge, and following not too far behind is the boss himself, Daniel. But then, Kenji makes his way to the voice of Daniel, and then it's revealed that's no ordinary Daniel. That's Daniel Khan, the head boss of Manticore and the father of Kenji Khan. Dun dun dun! And those were the events of Camp Cretaceous Season 4. And here is where Season 5 begins. So, with that out of the way, man, that took a large chunk of this video, we fast forward to 2017, where the situation on Nublar is looking quite dire. In February, the Costa Rican Institution of Volcanology, or the CRIV, makes a statement revolving around the island's dormant volcano, Mount Sibo, stating that the volcano is no longer dormant, but rather burning slowly from within, making this the first time the mountain has shown any considerable activity since the island's initial discovery back in the 1500s. Now, despite some beliefs as to why the volcano is active again, some people stating it might be because of the vacancy of Jurassic World and how the geothermal power plants aren't taking advantage of the building up energy, the CRIV makes an official statement stating that, and I quote, "A shift in the tectonic plates resulted in a minor aftershock throughout the rock bed, creating a relatively small fissure that caused a rise in heat beneath Mount Sibo. The visible plumes of smoke are the results of plant life and other biological material catching fire from the temperature change. There is no immediate threat to the island at this time." Well, that's gonna age badly. Later in March of the same year, the Dinosaur Protection Group, or the DPG, is founded by Claire Deering, which could have not come sooner. But let's go back to Isla Nublar real quick. Around this time we meet up with Blue, who seems to be managing well on her own, but she's still, well, alone, and catch up in the day of this raptor. We follow her as she tries to ambush her next prey, a baby Triceratops, but before a chase can ensue, a Pteranodon ruins the ambush, keeping Blue busy from the baby trike. Once the flying reptile retreats, Blue tries to pick up the trail of the baby trike, but before she can, a ground tremor makes her turn her attention to the island's dormant volcano, which shows it might not be as dormant as everyone surmised. Because of this spike in activity, on September 2017, Mount Sibo will be reclassified as active, having a VLC or a volcano status level of a magnitude 3. To give you guys an idea of the devastation that can follow, the last Mag 3 eruption we witnessed was the Cumbre Vella volcano eruption. The location was subjected to over 20,000 earthquakes in the span of 1 week. These earthquakes were 3.5 in magnitude, and that was before the initial eruption. When the volcano finally did its thing, over 5,000 to 10,000 residents and tourists had to be evacuated. The area was put on the highest alert level, which is red. The volcano would be classified to have a VLE, or volcanic explosive index, of 2, but soon was bumped up to 3, and the volcano would remain active, spewing magma and toxic sulfuric gas for the next 3 months. In the aftermath, there was a lava flow of 40 hectares. That's around 400,000 meters. This thing would span over 5 to 6 cities and towns. Now going back to Nublar, with a public announcement of the island going critical and a potential extinction level event that would level the island, the DPG starts a campaign to save the dinosaurs, starting mass protests around the world to demand that the world governments to attempt a rescue op. As news of the impending destruction of the island spreads further and further, Dr. Wu sets plans in motion for another expedition to the island to obtain important research and a specific genome to perfect his new creation. This leads us to the events of Jurassic World Aftermath. The game starts off with you in a cabin of a plane, with your teammates in the cockpit. There are only 4 people in this team. They are Dr. Maya Everett, Carlos, Juan, and the character you play, Sam. The 4 of them are currently about to hit Isla Nublar airspace, which is still under strict quarantine after 2015. The flight goes well. Maya talks to Sam about her plans once they land on the island, while Carlos and Juan bicker among themselves. But when the team gets sight of the island, the plane is then attacked by a flock of pteranodons, causing the aircraft to crash. But before the plane crashes, it sounds like Carlos tosses Mia out of the plane. Anyways, once the plane is on the ground, Sam and Juan seem to be the only ones left in the wreckage. Carlos and Mia, however, are nowhere to be found. It is just you and him. But it won't matter because the resident Tyrannosaur looks around the wreckage before finding Juan and eating him. The Rex is then lured away from the wreckage by an alarm in the distance, while Sam exits the wreckage, avoiding the Rex. After he enters the building, Mia manages to contact Sam and is able to see what he sees through the body cam he equipped back on the plane. Sam then makes his way to the operations center, while Maya landed near one of the Jurassic World bunkers. Sadly for Maya, she busted her knee while landing. With the situation dire, and no one back at the mainland knowing of their current predicament, because again, this was supposed to be a quick in and out job, but dinosaurs. Mia then begins guiding Sam through the facility to find the breaker room, in an attempt to restore enough power to send a message out, or call someone. After restoring power and finding out where everything is using the map provided, Mia points out a guider, which Sam uses to guide him to the ranger station. After Sam finds the ranger station, both him and Mia soon find out that Sam isn't the only one in the station. Because soon after Sam arrives, he is surprised by a velociraptor, and it's not blue, nor a potential surviving member of the Raptors. But we'll get more into that later on. With the help of Mia, Sam manages to escape the raptor. Once in the vents, Mia reveals that the raptor is one of 3 that they bred for a specific project. No one from Icarus was involved, nor knew about the project. Not even Hoskins knew about this. Mia will reveal more of the project later on. Mia then guides Sam to equip himself with a virtual interface, a device that allows the user to activate facility utilities from a distance. So, for example, a speaker or a screen. Once Sam evades the same raptor from earlier, he manages to access the NMA Center, or Enema for short. I realized that was a mistake. Seeing a lot of the equipment in the center is in fair shape and operational, Mia guides Sam to get a signal out to get help. They realign a dish, get the wavelengths in line, etc. However, Sam needs to lock in the frequency in the lower levels, meaning Sam needs to avoid the raptors once again. After Sam locks in the frequency and making it up to the upper level, Mia then plays an audio file of her with Dr. Wu back in 2012. The clip tells us about the NMS project, which was a project that was mapping out the raptor genome, and had hatched its first raptor. The results from the first subject was enough to impress Dr. Wu, but after the clip is done, the 2 survivors soon find the antenna to be offline. With that option essentially being useless, Sam makes his way back through the M&A Center and has to navigate through the Raptors once again. Once he's back in operations, Mia insists on Sam to play another audio clip. In the clip, Wu shares with Mia that the progress on the project has gained the interest of Masrani himself, so much so that he greenlit the hatching of 2 more specimens, but kept in similar controlled environments as the first one. After that, Mia in the recording asks for the opportunity to lead a team of her own, which sends Wu in a rageful rant before noticing the recorder is still on. After that, Mia remembers she can establish a secure link with someone in the California lab called Lockwood Manor. Sam then heads down to the geothermal plant to restore power, but once there's another issue. He needs to avoid a pack of Dilophosaurs. After avoiding the spray of the Dilos, Sam manages to get the geothermal reactor working again. As the reactors start up again, Mia plays another audio clip, and to make a long story short, Mia and Wu left off on bad terms. Basically, Maya talked with Simon Masrani about the project in a pitch meeting that she devised, which was against Dr. Wu's wishes. After this, we can assume that she was demoted before the events of the Indominus. Once the generator is operational, Sam makes his way back to operations, and then Mia makes the call to Lockwood Manor, and who ends up picking up but Dr. Wu himself. Mia pleads with him to send rescue, but Wu, who's worried that the mission has been compromised, refuses. So Mia states she and Sam can still get what Wu was hoping to retrieve, the genome. The genome related to Mia's work for the NMA project. Wu then agrees, but only after they retrieve said genome, and then he abruptly cuts the line. Sam then makes his way to the lab, still avoiding the Velociraptors, but things start getting a little more difficult when he enters the genome labs, because at this point, Sam only had to worry about 1 raptor at a time. But now all 3 of them are there, tracking him down. Once Sam is in a secure location, Mia plays another audio clip. This time it doesn't feature Wu, but rather Ian Malcolm, who seems to be doing what I can only guess is a TED Talk. And before the audio clip ends, we actually hear Mia asking Malcolm a question. Sam continues through the genome labs, trying to find what Dr. Wu is looking for, while avoiding the 3 raptors. Eventually Sam makes it to the server room, where most of the information is stored. He begins getting it while being accosted by the raptors. Hey, I think I see a pattern in here. Once Sam gets the data, he then heads back to operations, but before Mia can dial up Dr. Wu again, she loses power to her bunker. Lights, radar, everything gone. It's just all black. Thankfully for them, the comms are still up though. Sam continues cautiously while Mia tries to restore power back in her bunker, but soon Mia is discovered by the Velociraptors. Sam then rushes to operations and hopes to help Mia. Mia mentioned earlier that the raptors respond to a sound cue for feeding. So once Sam makes it to operations, he plays the cue, which leads the raptors away from Mia. And thankfully for the 2 of them, it works. Once the raptors leave, Mia dials in Dr. Wu, but rather than send help, Wu has another request. The research that Mia and Sam managed to retrieve is only part of what Wu needs. Wu then requests the pair to retrieve another genome, that is, and I quote, a monitor lizard polymerase to promote parthenogenesis. Parthenogenesis, you say? This genome is what gave rise to Blue. Mia reluctantly agrees to help before the call ends. Before Sam can begin his trek into the park to find the genome, the raptors find him. He then hides in one of the closets in operations, but the door is giving way. Mia tries her best to lure the raptors away. Sam focuses on Mia's recording that she let play accidentally during the whole skirmish. The recording is of her talking to Dr. Malcolm. He goes on his spiel about chaos and how it can't be controlled, and related it with the dinosaurs. Once Sam is back to the present, Mia asks him to activate the fire suppression. Once he does, the raptors retreat. When Sam emerges from the closet, he finds the operations room in ruin. He leaves the room heading straight to Wu's office to get authentication to the cryogenic vault. That's where Blue's DNA is currently held. On his way there, Sam would find Carlos's parachute. At this point, it's fair to assume he's dead as well. This news would ultimately upset Maya. Sam makes it to maintenance, but is soon joined by one of the NMS Raptors, having to play the hide-and-seek game yet again. Soon Sam would find Wu's office, and using the system in the office, tries to gain authentication to access the vault. However, he needs an encryption key to finish the process. In realizing this, Maya admits defeat. But soon, thanks to Sam, he finds the encryption key. The unfortunate thing is that it's been taken by a compy. Sam follows the compy through the lower levels while avoiding the raptor, before finally cornering the compy and getting the key. Once the key is secure, Sam sneaks his way back up to Wu's lab. Sam then scans himself in and now has access to the vault. Mia then tells Sam to head back to the operations room to propagate the data. While the system updates, Mia plays the rest of the recording with Malcolm. In the second half, Malcolm pretty much stays the same as before, only this time it hits Mia personally and she storms off. After Sam is added to the system, he then makes his way down to the vault. As Sam makes his way through the behavioral labs, he has to gain an access code from Mia's locker. There we find a picture of Mia, who actually met Hammond when she was really young. She was like around 9 at the time. Sam continues through the labs before he encounters a Triceratops. He would later use the same Triceratops to knock down one of the pen doors. This will give him access to the nerve center. After Sam gets some of the operations in the nerve center up, the audio cue malfunctions and starts blaring the cue for food, luring back one of the raptors. After Sam sneaks around the animal and traverses the facilities more, he soon finds himself outside the vault. So he needs to go all the way around in order to get inside through an elevator. Once he gets on, he makes it down to the vault security room, where he manages to unlock the vault, but the celebration is cut short when one of the raptors appears. Thankfully, it runs away when the vault opens. Sam then uses a secret elevator to make his way down to the cryogenic storage, where Sam finds the sample of Blue's DNA. As Sam makes his way back up, the secret elevator stops working. While Sam finds a way to get it working again, Mia finds another sound file and plays it. It's Malcolm again, making his own recording on Mia's tape. And I think I'll let him say what he needs to say.
Okay. Hi, Mia. It's Ian. You still haven't come back. I'm sitting here thinking, and you know what frustrates me most? And the point I was trying to make is that for all the ignorance and greed that it's taken for our planet to get here, we still haven't passed the point of no return. Not yet. And the way I see it, a course correction would take one of two things. One, a dramatic, instantaneous shift in the thinking of nearly everybody on the planet. Let's call that unlikely. So, number two, for one person, the right person, to put the future of their species ahead of their own ambition, ahead of their pride, maybe ahead of their life. A leader of industry, a senator, or maybe a scientist. We don't have the luxury of knowing where our every decision is going to lead. But one thing I do know for certain, real change, the change you're looking for, takes real courage and real sacrifice.
I need that. I'm not a bad person, Ian.
I know, Mia. You're just trying to make a difference.
As that clip is playing, Sam manages to get the elevator working and makes his way to operations once again. When Sam finally makes it back, Mia makes the call to Lockwood Manor one more time. Wu answers and is pleased with the developments. He also offers Mia a job at Lockwood Estate for his upcoming project. Wu then ends the call by saying a helicopter is on its way and that Sam along with Mia should be at the landing pad within an hour. After the call, Mia has a bit of recollection. While Mia wants to make a difference, it might not be the difference she wants to be making, especially with this mission. She soon catches on that Wu might be making a weapon. And so she begins to conspire a way to lose Blue's DNA. But as she thinks about it a little further, a realization soon dawns on her. If the helicopter comes in, it will probably be attacked by the island's pterosaurs. Mia then concocts a plan to lure the pterosaurs away from the helicopter using the monorail, and knowing what we know now, that pans out. Sam then redirects all power to the monorail, and then leaves the operations room to start up the cars, while Mia uses the service tunnels to meet him there. However, the trek proves difficult for Sam. He can't simply walk in through the front because the main entrance of the monorail station was destroyed during the Jurassic World incident. So Sam needs to go through the recycling yard to access the monorail service elevator. But as Sam makes his way through, he is visited by the T-Rex. So every now and then, Sam needs to stay still to avoid detection. Sam manages to slog his way through and make it to the monorail service elevator. Once Sam makes it to the monorail, the helicopter is just 30 minutes out from the South Shore. He needs to time the launch of the monorail just right to keep the pterosaurs distracted long enough for the chopper to both land, collect Mia and himself before taking off again. As Sam makes his way through the station, the raptors return. He manages to sneak past them, however, and gain access to the main tracks of the monorail. However, when he gets there, the train itself is not there. Sam then makes his way to the control room, but can't get the train moving remotely. He needs to get to the train car itself and get it moving manually. As Sam makes his way through the service tunnels, he catches a glimpse of the 3 anime raptors, the leader being bioluminescent. Not sure why they added that to a test dinosaur that was kept away from the public, but alright. Sam continues through the vents, evading the raptors, before finally making it to the monorail cars. With 12 minutes before the chopper arrives, Sam then makes the necessary repairs and readies the monorail. With 4 minutes left, Sam has to charge the drained battery. Easier said than done when you have a glowing velociraptor tracking you down. Sam manages to get the battery and set the monorail off, just in time too because the chopper is now over the island. Sam gets the monorail to the main station, but not before getting accosted by pteranodons. Sam then makes his way carefully through the monorail, trying not to get pecked or skewered by the pteranodons. He manages to get out and set the monorail off. Thankfully for both me and Sam, the chopper is saved as the pteranodons begin attacking the monorail. It was a little dicey, but it seemed everyone made it. Mia then tells Sam there's one more thing she needs to do. She heads straight for the NMA Center as Sam makes his way to the chopper. But then, the 3 raptors corner him at a security checkpoint. But then Mia saves him by luring the 3 raptors back to the NMA Center using the sound cue. With that happening, she plans on locking them up at the NMA Center and then blow them up using some cans of ethane. She's not gonna make it, is she? And on cue, as Maya has the raptors in the center, her keycard doesn't work, so she can't escape. God damn it. Mia then asks of Sam for one last simple thing. She asks him to survive. And then the lab explodes. With Mia gone, Sam regains consciousness and continues, only to discover the blast took out 2 of the 3 raptors, the lead glowing one being scarred, and I imagine just a little bitter. Sam sneaks his way past her to get to the landing pad, but then gets cornered by her when he enters an elevator. Thankfully for him, the Rex snatches the raptor. Sam then makes it to the chopper, and once he takes off, Sam dumps Blue's DNA into the ocean, while listening to a monologue by Mia. And that's Jurassic World Aftermath. By 2018, the state of the island continues to deteriorate. The DPG reveals that the following species were subjected to abuse on Nublar. What do they mean by that? We don't know. These species are Styracosaurus, Mamenchisaurus, Eupocephalus, Salurus, Spinosaurus, Corythosaurus, Ceratosaurus, Herrerasaurus, Deinonychus, Segisaurus, and Laceltosaurus. However, the species populations on Nublar would decrease as well, as Edmontosaurus and Metriacanthosaurus are declared extinct, probably due to competition of resources or merely being hunted to extinction by a combination of poachers and the larger carnivore saurian inhabitants. By February, the DBG moved their operations from New York to San Francisco. Later in March, the trials against Dr. Wu come to a close. Dr. Wu would be found guilty under bioethical misconduct and stripped of all of his credentials, including his doctorate. And by September of 2018, the DPG starts a movement to defend the Isla Nublar organization. The protest makes its march on Capitol Hill, protesting the government for the lack of actions to save the wildlife of Isla Nublar. This raises the moral question of, do the InGen clone dinosaurs on Nublar deserve the same protections as other endangered species, or should they be left to die? This would take us to the main events of Fallen Kingdom. We start off with a hearing in Capitol Hill, where the Senate needs to decide whether the United States should send forces onto Isla Nublar to save as many species as they can before Mount Sibo erupts. Taken to the debate is Ian, making his point clear to leave the dinosaurs, seeing it as a necessary loss, that saving the dinosaurs might lead to a more catastrophic event. It's with that the Senate then decides to leave the island alone. News of this soon reaches Claire Deering, who's still hard at work to convince senators and governors to take action. Soon after the Senate reveals their consensus, Claire gets a phone call from the Benjamin Lockwood estate. The same Benjamin Lockwood that collaborated with John Hammond and co-founded InGen. Claire then heads to California to the Lockwood estate. Once there, she is met with Eli Mills, who runs the Lockwood Foundation. Mills then shows Claire around and reveals what we already know, how Lockwood and Hammond extracted the first dinosaur DNA in a makeshift lab in the lower levels of the estate. But while on tour, Claire notices a little girl. This girl would be Maisie, Lockwood's granddaughter, but we'll talk about her more later on. Mills then reveals, after being joined by Benjamin Lockwood, that the Lockwood Foundation bought a chunk of private land for the dinosaurs called Sanctuary. Lockwood then promises Claire they will save the dinosaurs. Mills then fills Claire in on the details, saying they need her bioprints and expertise of the park to get the park-wide tracking system up and operational.
That poses a real challenge for us.
Blue.
I didn't know she had a name, but Blue is potentially the second most intelligent piece of life on this planet.
So, what you're telling me is that Blue smarter than primates. Despite Mills' modest estimate that they can only save 11 species, we'll soon see that number to be a little bit higher. Kinda jumping ahead, but Mills' team would successfully extract over 18 species from Isla Nublar. And this is not counting Blue or the T-Rex.
And she's the last of her kind.
Yeah, last of her kind. Claire then gives Mills a reality check that Blue will be near impossible to capture, so Claire heads to the one person she knows who can track and capture Blue, Owen Grady. Claire then catches Owen up on the rescue op for the animals of Isla Nublar, but Owen isn't interested in saving any of the dinosaurs, let alone Blue. Claire leaves Owen before telling him the details in case he's interested. That same night, Owen will look at old research videos of the Raptor Squad when they were really young, and then he decides to head to the rescue op. Quick little intermission here, because now we have Blue VR Chapter 2. On the day of the rescue, we catch up with Blue again. She's once again hunting. Her travels take her to a nest of unguarded eggs, or at least she thinks it's unguarded, as the mother, a baryonyx, confronts Blue. But the fight is soon interrupted by the island's Tyrannosaur. The T-Rex tosses the baryonyx to the side, in which Blue uses the opportunity to latch herself on the tyrant, but she doesn't hold on for long, with the Rex shaking Blue off her persons. But before the Rex can finish Blue off, a convoy of 3 helicopters distract the Rex, who then soon follows haste. Blue then retreats into the forests. Later that morning, Claire and her co-workers, more specifically Zia Rodriguez and Franklin Webb, entered the plane, only to be welcomed by Owen. After a brief introduction, the group head to Isla Nublar, meeting up with the ground team Mills scrounged together. Ken Wheatley, the exhibition facilitator, greets everyone, but have to cut it short as the volcano continues to show more activity. The expedition then begins, with Franklin being quite paranoid about the T-Rex. The team then make it to Main Street, where Zia sees her first dinosaur, a Brachiosaurus. The team then makes it to one of their main destinations, a control bunker near the base of Mount Sibo. Once Franklin gets the systems up, including the dinosaur trackers, the team then start collecting more species. Zia and Owen head out with Wheatley, while Claire and Franklin stay in the bunker. Eventually, Owen continues to trek on foot, as Blue is able to sense the truck they're in. Owen then finds the old explorer that Grant and Tim escaped from in the first movie, before Owen gets jumped by Blue. He tries to tame her, but she's clearly gone feral. But as they continue the song and dance, Blue begins to recognize Owen. But before Owen can re-cement the bond, one of Wheatley's men shoots Blue with a tranq dart too early. As the men begin to move in against Owen's orders, Blue jumps one of the men before getting shot twice, once with another tranq and the other a bullet to the gut. Owen then charges at Wheatley, who responds in kind with a tranq dart to Owen's chest, and then Owen collapses. Oh no! The clear bad guys. are bad. Zia then pulls a gun on Wheatley, her leverage being the only person on the island who can treat Blue. The rescuers turned hunters then collect Zia and Blue. Meanwhile, at the bunker, a sudden small eruption rocks the base of the mountain, before two of Wheatley's men lock Claire and Franklin in the bunker. As the team on the island starts pulling out and reconvening to the docks where the boat is waiting, Wheatley makes a call to Mills, as the volcano becomes more violent. While on the call, Mills lashes out at Maisie, before sending her off, promising her to tell her everything about the rescue op. Back with Owen, he gets a bit of a rude awakening by a Sinoceratops, before the animal gets scared away by the lava flow. As the trank begins to lose its effect on Owen, the lava flow starts getting closer, though he manages to limply evade it, and sooner rather than later, regain full control of his body. Meanwhile, with Claire and Franklin, they manage to get one of the service tunnels open since the main entrance to the bunker isn't responding. But before they can leave, a proximity alert shows them that there's a dinosaur nearby, a baryonyx, and with it, lava! Claire and Franklin then make a break for the hatch on top of the bunker. They manage to escape while trapping the baryonyx inside. That wasn't very activist of you, Claire. Once Claire and Franklin make it to the surface, they meet up with Owen, running away from a stampede of dinosaurs. The group then take refuge in a gyrosphere before being interrupted by a Carnotaurus, who then gets interrupted by the T-Rex, who then gets interrupted by the volcano in the background. Yeah, things be happening in a very fast pace. And we still have an hour left of this movie. The volcano then erupts with a pyroclastic flow that everyone and everything runs from. Eventually, the gyrosphere heads off a cliff with Owen in tow. The lava then begins to melt holes into the gyrosphere before Owen tries to save Claire and Franklin. They manage to escape, then head to one of the island's shores that isn't covered in lava. From there, they follow some of the helicopters carrying the dinosaurs to the dock. How the hell did they get the T-Rex so fast? As the mercs begin packing up, Claire, Franklin, and Owen sneak their way onto the boat quite abruptly. Once the trio are on, everyone on the boat turns to the island, watching it burn. And in the island's final moments, they see one of the brachiosaurs trying to escape. It will later be confirmed by the director, J.A. Bayona, that this brachiosaurus is actually the same individual that we saw in the first film. The animal gives one last stand on its hind legs before being taken by the eruption. And if you think this scene isn't sad, you are a cold, heartless monster that deserves no love. But being serious for a minute, it didn't really hit me until the second time I was watching this that this would be the last time we will ever see Nublar. And it's quite tragic if you think about it. In a way, the island became this mythical place where it all began. The foundations of Hammond's dream, and it would ultimately be the place where it succeeded in that dream, even if it was for a short while. There were hopes the island would prosper, maybe have a triumphant end, with happy park goers or dinosaurs being dinosaurs. But it would ultimately come ahead. This isn't just the death of Isla Nublar or its dinosaurs. This is the death of Jurassic Park itself. Not with applause with guests or the calls of dinosaurs, but from ash and cinder. Back on the mainland, Mills meets up with a man named Eversol, who appears to be a provider for bidders. Anyways, Mills runs Eversol through his plans of making a profit off of the sold dinosaurs and using that money to invest in another project, making a bioweapon out of a certain hybrid. Ladies and gents, I give you the untamable thief, the Indoraptor. Not exactly the name you want for a weapon. And while Mills explains this, Maisie catches the beginning of Mills's pitch. She then brings this to Lockwood, who thinks Maisie simply misheard Mills. So Lockwood sends Maisie off, but is curious nonetheless. Back on the boat, Claire, Franklin, and Owen sneak around the vessel before finding Zia trying to stabilize Blue. Zia then asks Owen and Claire to get blood of another carnivore to perform a transfusion so she can operate on Blue. Preferably a carnivore with no more than 3 fingers, so Carnotaurus is out of the question. they can probably get DNA from either a Baryonyx, maybe Suchomimus, or maybe even an Allosaurus. However, the pair decide to go with the T-Rex. Claire and Owen sneaks into the T-Rex's crate and begins extracting the blood. But as soon as they get it, two mercs close the crate door, only for the Rex to reawaken, and the animal begins thrashing around. Claire manages to escape, but Owen is trapped. Even if the front door wasn't closed, he'd still need to get past those jaws. Claire then manages to open the crate door, and Owen makes a jump for it, just missing the T-Rex's jaws. Claire and Owen then take the blood to Zia to begin the operation, and thankfully for them, they manage to remove the bullet, saving Blue's life. Back at Lockwood Manor, Maisie begins her investigation on what Mills is doing. She sneaks into the lower levels, finding the makeshift lab. In it, she finds incubating eggs and X-rays, before finding one of Owen's logs on the Ibris project. In the videos, Owen explains that Blue shows high cognitive functions when compared to the other raptors. But before Maisie can continue watching the videos, Mills and Dr. Wu barge into the lab. Wu clearly upset at Mills for the mishandling of Blue and her condition. Mills is confused at Wu's outburst, so Wu makes it clear that Blue's DNA is only part of the project. They need her alive to nurse and teach the new Indoraptor. Otherwise, it might end up like the first two hybrids, or like the first iteration, the prototype. As Maisie sneaks away from the two adults, she unknowingly bumps into the Indoraptor. As she runs away from it, she then bumps into Mills, who then proceeds to lock her in her room. But before Mills can continue with Wu, he gets summoned by Lockwood. Not too far away from the estate, the boat transporting the dinosaurs has docked, and is now transporting the animals up to the manor itself. Before Franklin can sneak away with Claire and Owen, he is caught up by one of the crewmates who mistake him as one of their own. Franklin then gets conscripted to help them unload the animals. Meanwhile, Owen and Claire take one of the trucks in an attempt to sneak into the manor. They then think of possibly breaking off from the main convoy and get the proper authorities, but they're soon found out by Wheatley and his men. Back in the manor, Mills admits his transgressions to Lockwood. Lockwood then demands Mills to call the police, but instead of that, Mills would end up killing Lockwood. Mills then makes his way to the lower levels where Claire and Owen are held, calling them the parents of the new world for allowing and proving what's going to happen. You know, getting the dinosaurs, figuring out they can be taught, etc. After almost breaking his arm, but breaking his glasses instead, we then return to Maisie, who breaks out of her room. Mills with Mr. Eversole greet the buyers to the Lockwood estate, while Maisie sneaks her way outside to talk to Lockwood, only to find him dead. Soon, Mills barges in, announcing the death of Lockwood. As Mills and Iris talk about what will happen next to Maisie, Maisie makes her way down the dumbwaiter. Meanwhile, with Claire and Owen, they conduct a plan to break out by angering a sticky Moloch. While this happens, the auction continues, managing to sell and transport some of the dinosaurs out. Before Claire and Owen finally manage to get out and letting the sticky Moloch do its own chaos in the manor, the two of them are soon found out by Maisie. Not gonna lie, the dialogue used in the scene is kind of, well, doesn't help that they essentially kidnap Maisie. We'll just put it at that. The trio then make their way through the manor before discovering the auction, which just in time reveals the Indoraptor. While the prototype is just for display to tease a better version later on, no one cares and just start bidding for it. By the way, the Indoraptor has this weird thing with the laser pointer. There's also this thing about a bioacoustic trigger that sends it to attack whatever the red dot is aimed at. I don't know, man. Well, anyways, Owen then heads off to stop the auction. Despite the Russian buyer winning the bid, the auction is then interrupted by the Stiggy Moloch, with Owen following suit, and stopping the Indoraptor from being transported. Meanwhile, in the chaos, Wheatley heads into the auction hall and finds the Indoraptor. Now let's play a guessing game. Yeah, it's what will they do next? Here we see Wheatley finding the Indoraptor. What will he do? Will he A. ignore it and find Mills, B. leave the auction hall and get security, or C. trank the Indoraptor, open its cage, and try to get its tooth, which would seal his fate like an idiot? it was Z. As Wheatley is getting ripped apart, should also mention he forgot to close the gate behind him. Eversol runs to the elevator with other auctioneers, which one of them then alerts the Indoraptor of their presence. Eversol manages to close the elevator doors, but a well-placed tail swipe of the Indoraptor's tail opens the door, and it proceeds to kill the attendants inside. Meanwhile, Claire, Owen, and Maisie try to escape before getting caught by Mills. Here's where Mills drops the bombshell. Maisie is not Lockwood's granddaughter, but rather a clone of his real daughter who died in a car crash. But before Mills can continue, the Indoraptor makes quick work of his entourage. Both parties make haste and retreat. Meanwhile, in the lab, Wu begins evacuations, getting everything on the move. Wu demands that Zia help him extract Blue's blood, before Franklin jumps Wu with a trank. Also should probably mention, because of the blood transfusion with the T-Rex, kind of makes Blue's DNA useless now. As the guards close in on the pair, Zia then lets Blue escape, which causes a rupture in one of the gas tanks in the lab, setting off an explosion. However, all three of them manage to escape the blast. Meanwhile, in the manor, Claire, Owen, and Maisie hide from the pursuing Indoraptor. After a small chase, the trio try hiding in the display cases. They turn the lights off and hide from the hybrid, while Zia and Franklin have their own dilemma. The blast apparently ruptured another tank containing a toxic gas, hydrogen cyanide. With the ventilation system not working, Franklin then resets the manor's systems in an attempt to save the animals, meaning the lights Owen and Claire just turned off suddenly spring back on, and they are soon found by the Indoraptor. It injures Claire and chases after Maisie exclusively. Maisie narrowly manages to escape to the dumbwaiter and make her way to her room, while the Indoraptor decides to look a little cinematic. Claire, now injured, assures Owen she'll be fine and that she needs to find Maisie. Owen then gears up, ready to confront the Indoraptor. Meanwhile, the hybrid then manages to track down Maisie to her room, before Owen intervenes, but the animal proves to be bulletproof. Luckily for Owen, he has Blue by his side. The two dinosaurs do battle with each other, while Owen and Maisie sneak outside the window to avoid the fight. But the battle kind of finds them, knocking them off of their feet. The Indoraptor goes flying out the window before cornering Owen and Maisie. Claire shows up, however, with a rifle. Claire and Owen, both knowing the roof can't hold the Indoraptor, then set a silent plan in motion. Using the red dot's sight and the bioacoustic trigger, Claire sends the Indoraptor for Owen, while Owen charges at the dinosaur before dodging the last minute. Missing Owen entirely, the animal hits the roof, forcing the dinosaur to crash through it. However, it manages to catch itself and realigns, ready to attack the trio, before Blue reappears and tackles the Indoraptor into the mini museum below them, impaling the hybrid on top of a large ceratopsian skull. Zia and Franklin then join up with Claire, Owen, and Maisie. They take them to the lower level, where the dinosaurs are dying. Claire then begins setting the animals free in the basement, but she hesitates in letting them go into the wild. Claire then stops herself and allows the animals to die. And then Maisie opens the main doors, allowing for all of the animals to escape into the wilds of California. Outside of the estate, Mills and his men get caught in the stampede. He manages to avoid them by hiding under a car. He emerges to grab the Indominus rib given to him by Wu, only to be eaten by the Tyrannosaur. She then proceeds to stomp on the rib, destroying the Indominus hybrid legacy. Before Owen and Claire leave with Maisie, they are met with Blue, but, being smarter than primates, leaves them, knowing that they probably put her in another cage. And like that, Owen, Claire, and Maisie get in a car and leave the area. The last important thing to mention are the few scenes that play during Ian's monologue. We see a plane with a baryonyx as cargo, along with a mysterious figure with a suitcase full of embryos that tease what's to come. We also see dinosaurs being transported via trucks, pterosaurs taking flight, and a couple of other things we'll be mentioning real soon. But that concludes Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Shortly after the events of Lockwood Manor, activist groups still take to the street for the dinosaurs to be rescued from Nublar. Oh, those poor fools. A news anchor named Rebecca Ryan covers the story before switching to another, this time in Oahu, Hawaii. People witnessed the Mosasaurus for the first time since 2015. The animal had swam over 5,000 miles from Nublar and decided to visit a surfing competition and maybe eat a few people while it's there. After the news show, Rebecca makes her way home. calling her family still unaware of the events at the Lockwood Manor. She asks her husband to keep the kids from the internet to dampen the news of the mosasaur. A few weeks would pass after the events of Lockwood Manor. Local zoo workers prepare to start the day before they get an alert of something having broken into the lion exhibit. Once they make it down there, they see a face-off between a lion and the T-Rex. But this would only be the beginning, as more dinosaurs are sighted across the country. The internet floods with home videos of pterosaurs flying beside planes, stegosaurs in forests, and Compy socializing on lawns. Soon, the United States puts out multiple emergency alerts. Rebecca tries to keep her kids from seeing too much, before hitting the road to drop her kids off at school, while Rebecca's husband, who works for the U.S. Department of Wildlife, gets a call and heads out as well. However, he doesn't get far when a tree on the road blocks his route. He is soon joined by a fighting ankylosaur and triceratops. As the two herbivores fight, Rebecca's husband makes his escape. He would ultimately make it to his destination, the zoo where the T-Rex was sighted. The zoo itself evacuated everyone as the workers tried to contain the animals. As law enforcement surround the area, the T-Rex makes an escape, but not before almost crashing one of the CH-47 transport helicopters. The forces on the ground then attempt to push the Rex back into the forest to a more isolated area in a ravine. Meanwhile, with Rebecca, the news station promises updates on the T-Rex. And like last time, cuts to a different anchor, who's covering a flock of pterosaurs currently around Las Vegas. Rebecca also reveals that these might be the same pterosaurs that were spotted diving into a place called Lake Mead. If they are the same pterosaurs, then they managed to cover some distance. But if they aren't, then there are more of these animals than we initially anticipated. Which is bad, considering the footage that Rebecca ends up showing next is of pteranodons picking people off the ground. Rebecca then promises more coverage of this ever-developing situation, before it becomes very clear that dinosaurs are now taking over the mainland. But what would a world full of dinosaurs look like? Well, 5 to 10% of all car accidents are caused by wildlife. Not sure if this is true, but a friend of mine said this was a bad omen. Next time on Deadliest Catch. Knowing what the smaller ones did to a man, this girl has every right to be afraid. The average lion's bite force is 650 pounds per square inch. A T-Rex's is 600 times that. California is currently the highest state with the most pets attacked by wildlife. Yo, has anyone noticed a dip in the shark population? Just to name a few. The rest of 2018 will continue to escalate, with humans and dinosaurs encountering each other more often, to the point where a group dubbed Extinction Now is founded. Man, I wonder what they advocate for. 1 year would pass, and the world has come to terms with dinosaurs inhabiting the planet once again, with most incidents just being eyewitness statements, with a particularly infamous incident happening in the north. What are people talking about? We don't know. But car crashes are probably the least troublesome encounters. In 2019, at Big Rock National Park, campers enjoyed their time together with friends and family, where we meet with... they don't have a last name. The family of Dennis and Maria, who are camping with their 3 children, Kadash, Mateo, and... the baby doesn't have a name either. As the family prepped to eat, they suddenly noticed some of the other campers scrambling to their RVs and vehicles, because wandering into their campsite is a Nasutoceratops and its youngster. As the family conversed about the year-long coexistence of the animals, with Maria mentioning the event in the north, still don't know what that is, mate. The Ceratopsians soon aren't the only dinosaurs in camp, as my personal favorite, an Allosaurus, makes its presence known. The animal initially goes after the baby Nasutoceratops before losing its grip and is forced to fight the mother. The family remain in the trailer, avoiding the fight, as the tides seem to be in the Allo's favor. However, a male Nasutoceratops soon comes in and the family unit retreats, leaving the Allosaurus in the camp alone, but the Allo soon turns its attention to the family as the baby starts crying. The Allo then tips the RV over, rendering everyone inside unconscious. As everyone reawakens, the Allosaurus then makes its way into the RV. Kadash manages to escape the RV, but the family is blocked off to escape by the Allosaurus. The family try to hold it off with metal supports and a fire extinguisher, but it proves ineffective. Just before the Allo lunges at the family once more, Kadash lands 2 crossbow arrows near one of its eyes. In pain, the animal then retreats. The The family then reconvene with other campers coming out to help. Later on, news crews and the U.S. Wildlife Department descend on the campsite to investigate the carnage. Rebecca Ryan is one of them. One of the more crucial facts about this event is not how bold the dinosaurs have become, or how well they're taking to their new environments of the US of A, but this event would make headlines due to the existence of the young Nasutoceratops. Because not only does this show the dinosaurs are surviving and adapting, they're also breeding. Meaning, this situation might last a little longer than people had hoped for. With the local law enforcement tracking the Allosaurus movements and the news crews done, they then pack it up and prepare to leave the camp. But before Rebecca and her crew can leave, she gets a call from her husband. Kind of annoying though, since there's a helicopter over her head. Though that chopper is there for good reason. Remember how I said the local law enforcement were tracking the Allosaurus movements? Well, it looks like the Allosaurus double back to the campsite and wrecks Rebecca's news van. She then seeks shelter in a tree hollow while her husband on the phone is asking her to leave the area. He was essentially trying to warn her about the Allosaurus. Damn, bro. That's crazy. And the story ends with the Allosaurus cornering Rebecca in the tree hollow. Which now brings us full circle to 2022, with the second half of the prologue. The Department of Fish and Wildlife finally managed to track down the Rex and are on hot pursuit. However, in the animal's panic, it enters a drive-in theater. Amidst the chaos, the pilots and rangers on the chopper miss the Rex, and lose her once again in the surrounding woods. But seems like a good place to end the Jurassic World timeline. You see what I did there? You see, it started off by calling it the Jurassic Park timeline, but now that we're in the Jurassic World era, you're calling it the Jurassic World era. Writing. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it useful when you inevitably check out Dominion, and because let's face it, you came here to see what's up with the film. You wanted to know probably all the Easter eggs and lore so you could be like that one guy. It's like, hey, I recognize them. Also, if you have any questions or disagree with anything that I say in this video, please leave them in the comments down below, because I'll be sure to cover everything that I may have missed or things that may have changed due to Jurassic World Dominion and Camp Cretaceous Season 5 in the follow-up discussion video. When will that video come out exactly? We don't know. So comment away, fellow viewers. Please, I need the clout. And I'll be sure to try my best to answer your questions. This has honestly been a really fun video to work on. Granted, it did kind of get sluggish at times, but honestly, I'm really glad that I had the experience of making this timeline video. So much so, one may ask, will I do another timeline video? And the answer to that question is... yeah. While I was working on this video, a second season of a certain series came out, and then I got curious and I looked up if that series had any timelines, and apparently it didn't, which is like one of the major reasons why I made this Jurassic World timeline, because there's like 2 videos on the subject and they're both like around 11 to 30 minutes, which, you know, like, I checked how much footage I had on the first recording day. No, sorry, after the second recording day. There's like over 9 hours of footage. Granted, this is with like me doing the right takes, but also the outtakes, so hopefully I could edit this down to like 3 hours or so, But yeah, I won't start that timeline video right now. There's a couple of other things I want to work on before I move on. Watch out for those first. But yeah, to like give you guys a guess as to what this next timeline video is, here it is. Kaiju. So good luck with that. But yeah, the Jurassic World franchise, or at least that's what I think it's called, has come a long way. And I hope I did it justice in this video. So I hope you all enjoyed this time with me, and I hope you guys enjoy Jurassic World Dominion. Until next time.